Well, howdy do, everybody, and welcome back to you on another beautiful spring day here in the city of Philadelphia, America's favorite city. We're glad that you could join us, and I'm really glad once again to invite you back and welcome you in to another exciting episode of Conversation that comes your way from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock every day here from Monday through Thursday on Evening Words with Nick. I happen to be the guy that they named the program after. My name is Evening Words. And I'm so glad that I could spend this time with you. Let me stop messing with you so early on. I'm Nick Taliaferro, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I look forward, hopefully, to learning your name a little bit later on. This has been a really busy week, and I got to tell you, I'm almost sure that I am the longest serving talk show host on this station. I'm pretty sure of it. Which simply means that I am old. Being the longest serving doesn't mean that I'm the best. It simply means that the mistakes that I've been making them longer than anybody else. But I remember talk radio in the early days of the 90s, back when black talk radio was really finding its way. And, you know, nobody ever thought that it would have grown to what it is now, even though it's been challenging. I want to stick a feather in the cap of the fearless leader, Sarah. Sarah, look, I got to tip my hat to you because I have a glimpse of how tough it is to run and to ride honcho on a radio station. Not just a glimpse. I don't do the business. I'm not a businessman at all. And but I've seen the stuff that she has to do. A couple of the meetings that she's had to go to, I've been a part of, and I would rather, ladies and gentlemen, have a proctological examination by a sand crab than to go to some of those meetings. And, you know, she does it and does it every day with skill and aplomb. But the point that I'm making is that this is really a great team, the WURD team. You can listen to radio stations all around the world and all around the country. And, you know, as one of the callers said yesterday, you don't have to agree with everything that gets said here. But gosh, you got to admit that it gets done with such skill. I mean, you know, Solomon Jones is a true journalist, a writer. You know, Charles Ellison is an A1 reporter and journalist. You know, just, you know, the activists that we have coming in on The Source. I mean, you know, I revere these ladies who come in on The Source. I mean, really. Those that we see, not always regularly and not every day, people like Tiffany Bacon, who is a longtime pro. I remember when I first met Sincerely Sarita, and I thought to myself that she was just a young lady at the time. Well, she still is. Sarita, if you're listening, you're still young. You're still young. Please take the dogs back. But she was really young at the time, but she had such poise and, you know, such insight and sentience and you know, to be a part of a team like that, and I just feel so honored, and it allows me this opportunity to engage you, and we don't always agree. I mean, really, if everybody agreed, then everybody, you know, people should check their brain at the door and just let one person do the thinking. We don't always agree. I mean, yesterday we had some disagreeable moments, and I actually got phone calls about that after the show, like, man, they were tearing you a new one. Just the nature of the beast, you know. I mean, but, you know, and when issues like race come along, man, it gets downright gorilla funky. And, you know, I understand that. I get it. There's a low level of tolerance on this station. You know, people will call up here and they'll be yelling about white people this, white people that, and the white people white. Then they go to work, be sitting right next to white people saying, how y'all doing? Ain't it a nice day? Yeah, sure, right. But they get here and they start getting that beer courage. they get that WURD courage and start talking, oh, we're going to overthrow the government, you know. And I get it. I understand it because when you're here, you're at home and you get protective and you get provincial. I get that. But the truth of the matter is you got to be able to talk about things, you know. The lack of dialogue is what's dooming this country right now. You got to be able to talk. And people will say, yeah, but some things you can't talk about. Those are the things you need to be able to talk about. And I'm committed to that, you know, and I won't be here forever. You know, shoot, I could quit tomorrow. I'm old. You know what I mean? Look, I'm looking forward to grabbing half a coconut shell and pouring something in it that perhaps I have no business drinking, and putting my feet up somewhere and letting the sun do its fandango dance on my body while I do nothing and then watch myself slow down. Folks, I could quit today. Bye. No, I'm only kidding. I love it here. So, but I won't be here forever. And at some point, I'll outlive my usefulness. I'm becoming irrelevant even to myself, even as I sit here and steep in my own juices. But the truth of the matter is, while I am here, I am deeply committed to the concept of dialogue. I'm deeply committed to challenging myself by allowing people who disagree with me fiercely to have their say. And I am deeply committed to trying to build a platform from which we can entertain the better angels of our nature rather than simply yield ourselves to the, how should we say it, the opinions that so easily beset us. Some of you know that language. So that's what I'm committed to. I hope that you are as well. I hope that every once in a while I discuss you thoroughly and you take me to task for it and say, Nick, that was the stupidest thing I ever heard, and that we get a chance to talk about it. Now, don't insult me. If you insult me now, don't let the smooth taste fool you. I'm a minister and everybody knows that, and I'm a nice guy, but I'm from North Philly. So let's be clear about something. I love the Lord with all my heart, but don't be insulting me, or you're going to have a long day at the office, and so am I, okay? And I won't insult you either until you insult me. And when something like that happens, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. I'm going to have my say. When it comes down to it, folks, when it comes down to it, there's only one name attached to this show that's printed on the marquee of the WURD webpage, and that's mine. And that means I'm responsible for it. It doesn't mean I'm better than anybody. It just means I'm responsible for it. And when people call and say, well, you had your say, well, you darn skippy, I had my say. It's the program I'm supposed to be riding herd on. If I don't have my say, I'm not doing my job. So let's just get clear about a couple things up here in the house. And I think we'll get along and have ourselves a whole lot. Deborah Young, I want to thank you for your comments. Deborah Young said, should not be any racism. We are all brothers and sisters under God. It shouldn't be. The other day when I had a picnic, it started raining, and it shouldn't rain, but it did. There shouldn't be any racism, but it is. And we've got to face it, acknowledge it, embrace it for the reality that it is, talk about the difficulties. For example, I believe in reparations. I just don't know how to get them done. There are a lot of people who want reparations as a form of penalty. Punishment is not necessarily healing. Punishing people that I think I have a right to be mad at does not necessarily heal me. So before I just say, give me them reparations, that gummit, before I go off on somebody, I want to understand, how is this done? Let's be honest about something right now. There's some people, and look, don't lie to me, because I know who you are, and I know where your family lives. Don't lie to me. There's some of you right now who know people that you hope and pray don't get a reparations check, because you know what they're going to do with it. You know it's the truth. Tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm lying. I'll stand up and call you an apple mouth lie. You ain't telling the truth, and you don't love your Jesus, and your feet stink. You know it's true that there's some people that you don't want to see get a reparation check. So the question is, how do you do it? And I know some people who are smarter than me who are figuring out some things. And I'm all for reparation. I just want to know how you do it. When I hear a bunch of brothers, we want out 40 acres and a mule. I think to myself sometimes, well, the mules already showed up. As you can see, I'm feeling some kind of way about things. And really, we've got a full show today. I'm looking forward to a great one. And I got some pushback on a statement I made earlier. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a great time to introduce a person who might have given me the pushback. It was kindly done, and perhaps I should embrace him and kiss him on the forehead. He is the man, the myth, the legend himself that makes Desiree's sunshine and the bells rang. Y'all don't know who Desiree is, but it'll come to you clear as time goes on. Folks, when we talk about wisdom incarnate coming out of the halls of learning of the highly esteemed Hampton University, there's one man who holds the banner. You know what they say about a Hamptonian? You know what they say? What do you call a Hampton grad 5 years after he's been on the job? Boss. Introducing, ladies and gentlemen, the boss of WURD from 4 o'clock to 7, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Eric Nixonian. What's going on, Agent 31?
It's a beautiful day, an easy day. It's a Friday for the Evening Words program. How are you, good sir?
Hallelujah. Hey, Chevrolet Honda. He come a Cadillac, he come a Honda. I'm so happy.
I bet.
Yeah, I was doing devotionals. We had a group of religious workers. I was doing devotions for them, every morning this week, and I thought, how hard could it be? Let me tell you, I didn't get no sleep, man, because I obsess over those moments when I have to stand before people. I do not want to waste people's time, and so it has been a busy week, but a very full and a very invigorating week. Are you the one who said that I'm not old, or did somebody call in and say that?
The person in the comment section said that.
Here I am. Hold on for just a second. Amazon, take that gift back. Don't send it to Eric. Okay. Here I am thinking, oh, he's so kind. I say I'm old, and he says to me, you're not old. Deborah Young, I thank you. Eric Nixon, I'll be seeing you after school in the schoolyard.
I mean, you're not old. Why do I have to reiterate that? I shouldn't have to tell you that because you're not.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. You have no idea the skills that this man has amassed in the last 10 years. I mean, he is smooth, ladies and gentlemen. He is slicker than snot on a doorknob. He is.
I mean, if you don't learn anything within a decade or some type of change, conversations need to be had and thoughts need to be thought. And, yeah.
Yes, I tell you, he went and came back from Kentucky, a new man.
I really
he says,
did.
I know,
nothing
man. Look,
changes you more than the distances you had to travel and the space between.
That was, when you packed and went out there, I said, poor fella. But man, I got to tell you, what you look for. And I remember when we talked about it, I said, when you're young and the responsibilities are few, that's the time you take some chances on doing some things and you learn from them. I've never met a guy who learned from things, and instead of sulking over the hard lessons, he said, you know what? Take a step up and build back up from it, man. I salute you.
I could only do nothing but, and I appreciate you. And I still remember that call, man. I said, it's hard out here, man. Take me back, man. I said, it's hard. I have to work. And
I remember that, man.
It's fine. Come back to my show. I said, I can't. I need radio, man.
Agent 31 said, it's hard out here for a pimp, and I ain't even a pimp, and it's still hard.
I said, Nick said, shh. I said, how come you mad, man? I can't do it out here.
And that's the other thing, not only coming back, but coming back and demonstrating a level of skill and growth and maturity that people can see and recognize. Man, look, we call that triumph where I come from.
I would definitely say that was a great lesson, and I'm still appreciative of the individuals that I encountered out there. All of that experience, I don't knock it one bit.
Yeah, man. Hey, well, look, I know you've heard. Everybody's heard about it. The case down in North Carolina, Andrew Brown Jr. I missed talking about it yesterday, but the young man who was shot by the county sheriff's deputies in Elizabeth City back in April. They looked at the videotape, and somebody said, he touched a sheriff with his car, shoot him. And they have exonerated all of the sheriffs, even though the sheriff himself, exonerated all the deputies rather, but the sheriff has kept a couple of the shooters still off the job. What are your thoughts on that one?
The reactions that people have for sensitivity, I feel like people find a reason almost to do anything, to try to put anybody through a system. And then the fact that that these laws, how long is it going to take for your process? About a couple of years. For a situation that could have just easily been resolved through, like you talked about, like the conversation you had yesterday and then leading up to today, when you're just like, things can just have a conversation. Doesn't need to always resort to going to court. Not trying to put any lawyers on their job.
Yeah. Well, in this case, where you got a dead man shot in a car, it appears that one of the deadliest places to be for a black man is to be in a car with police around.
Yeah.
Now, this is not to say, look, I'll be the first to admit to you that there are some people who do things where being shot is, it's an occupational hazard for you if you do certain things. but I sense that there is a level of disbelief, particularly that a lot of white people have when it comes to what happens to black men in the car. White officers will say, I was afraid for my life, and I believe that they were afraid for their life, but I just don't think the fear is justifiable.
But
I
why
think
would
that,
you be afraid for your life when it's just?
yeah, he's driving away from
I've never
you.
had a situation where, say, I might have bumped into an officer and walk. Could you imagine walking down the street in like Philly or something like that, or anywhere,
Yeah,
and I see an officer, say I wasn't paying attention, and I bumped the shoulders. I was afraid for my life. You know,
exactly,
like no, a
exactly.
bump. Excuse me, officer. Officer goes, no, excuse me, and you keep it pushing, and you keep pushing.
You would think that, but in America, and it is a sad reality that in America there are a lot of people for whom blackness is, by its very existence, a threat. I'm not here to say, I come from a school of thought that says people have a right to their feelings. They do not have a right to every action. And there are people who are afraid of black men. And that's because of the stories they've been told. Let's be honest with, I grew up in Philadelphia. And when I would see a black man, a young black man looking a certain way, a certain level of fear would rise in me. And I'm a young black man. You know when I confronted that fear, Eric, when I finally recognized that I had been contaminated and poisoned against my own by the society that did not accept me as I was. You know when it happened?
Yesterday when you turned 13 years old.
Close. It happened early one morning back in 1995 in Washington, D.C., when me and my brother in arms, Pastor William Hall, two black ministers, walking through the pre-dawn darkness in an October day in Washington, D.C., for the Million Man March. I realized as I was walking toward the march, because as you drove down I-95 and then we got on one of the metro trains in D.C., the closer you got to D.C., the blacker things got. You're used to seeing white people on the highway, white people on the train, but as we were going to the Million Man March, the word had gotten out and white people found something else to do that day. They were going anywhere. They were going to Harlem. They were going to Watts. They were going anywhere except Washington, D.C. And when we got to D.C., in the early morning hours of the Million Man March, everything was black, except for a few white people who were at work, and you could tell they had a strange look in their eyes because it was all black and it was extraordinarily noble. And I was walking down the street with all of these black men, and I realized I felt funny and I couldn't figure out what it was. And it dawned upon me when we all gathered on that mall, 1,000,000 men strong, that for the first time I was surrounded by a bunch of young black men and some not so young black men, just like myself, and I felt absolutely zero fear. And it dawned upon me that for all of my life I've been taught to fear myself. And in that moment, my life changed. I'm getting ready to cry.
Take your moment. Take your moment.
I'm not pretty enough to cry on camera. That's the only reason I'm not doing it. But I'm getting ready.
I can cut it off. I can cut it off.
You cut it off? Okay.
Let me change it.
Yeah, but seriously, man, that moment was glorious. I was surrounded by young black men. I remember a guy put an expensive camera down, very expensive. And I realized my ghetto instinct, my hood instinct said, the camera. Now, of course, I wasn't stealing it or anything in those days. I was a minister. I was past that life. But
I'm past that life.
I was.
I like that slide in though.
Hey, dude, there was a time.
You're being honest. At least you're being honest, and you're being honest.
There was a time, brother, when the camera would grow feet, But I looked at it, and he put the camera down, and what I noticed was not that he put it down, but the ease with which he put it down, that there was no concern. And nobody else looked at the camera like, here's an opportunity. I remember a young boy got separated from his father, and this young boy was crying. He was scared, surrounded by all of these strange men. He separated from his father, and they started hollering out, whose little boy is this? And from way over, the father started raising his hands. And man, you're talking about something of beauty that I will never forget. They lifted that boy up and started passing him from hand to hand. And you see this little boy surfing on a sea of black hands. until he was safely delivered into the embrace of his father again. Shoot, man, that day was glorious. I remember a couple of young ladies showed up there, and they were wearing some dental floss. You know what I'm talking about, right? You get me?
Yes.
Yeah. And they were, strutting around to demonstrate the absolute creative genius of God and the depiction of their anatomy. And nobody was paying them any mind. Nobody.
That's powerful.
Everybody. Man, that day was magic. It is my understanding that on that day, not one black man lifted his hand in murder against another black man in the nation. It's anecdotal, but nobody's proven it wrong yet. And I'm telling you, folks, when you see something that you realize, wow, what glory is there? It's not just about being black, it's about being fully human, fully actualized as a human being. That's all I'm saying to you. That's
I wonder
good
if we
stuff.
could ever do enough research to find the young man who was lifted across that crowd.
Man, wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to give that task to my producer. Hey, producer, how you doing?
See, that's not fair because you were there.
Oh, man,
wonder,
but that
what?
would be extraordinary.
The internet is
That would be extraordinary.
The internet is a thing, so I don't know. Let's see.
Well, hey, look, Maurice Waller said, see, y'all done PO'd the good Reverend Nick. Got him on here telling us he's from North Philly and ain't to be played with. Papa don't take no mess. You right about that, Maurice. Let me go take a chill pill and do my thing. Hey, everybody, you just heard from the man himself. He sits in the control tower of Flight Evening Words, and of course, he will be your pilot today, flying at an altitude of intellect. If you happen to call in, Eric Nixon will be the first voice that you will hear. Please treat him with the respect and kindness that a producer like Eric Nixon deserves, and he will return the favor and allow you to sail your thoughts through the air with the rest of us here on Evening Words. We've got a big show lined up for you. And just a few moments, we'll be checking in with Katrina Baxter. She's the organizing team coordinator for Soil Generation, and we'll be talking about black farming. Trust me, folks, that is an important thing to talk about. Then at 6 o'clock, we're going to take you over to look at Ethiopia through the eyes of Dr. Terje Astebo. He's the chairman of the Department of Contemporary Islamic Reform Studies at the University of Florida. And I've got to tell you, there's something going on in Ethiopia now that many of us don't know about, but thousands upon thousands have been killed. Millions upon millions are at risk. We'll tell you more about the conflict that is raging in the region of Ethiopia that is known as Tigray. All right, folks, all of that and more is coming up in just a few. Keep your dial set where you got it for the best and continuous two-way talk. 215-634-80 is the number. Wait a minute, don't call yet because I got a guest coming on. We'll take this first pause. Oh, I know what it is that I haven't done. On this day, May the 20th, 1961, 19 Freedom Riders were traveling by bus through the South to challenge segregation laws, and they were brutally attacked by a white mob at the Montgomery, Alabama downtown Greyhound station. Now, before that, the riders faced mob violence in Birmingham that was so serious that they threatened to end their campaign. White racists were determined that black people would not have agency, nor capacity, nor freedom. But the Freedom Riders reorganized themselves under the aegis of the Congress on Racial Equality, better known as CORE, and an interracial group of 22 Tennessee college students known as the Nashville Student Movement volunteered to take over, and they continued their ride through Alabama and Mississippi to New Orleans. But these Freedom Riders, when they reached Birmingham, they were immediately arrested, returned to Tennessee, and then they went on to Montgomery, bitter, sweltering Montgomery. At the city limits, the state police abandoned the Freedom Riders bus because there had been a conspiracy with the Montgomery Public Safety Commissioner, L.B. Sullivan, that would allow the Ku Klux Klan to come and have their way with these riders. And they did come, and they had their way with sticks and with bats and with hammers and with pipes. They set upon the Freedom Riders there, and the Montgomery police watched as white mobsters beat these Freedom Riders. And they weren't all black. They were white and black. One white college student named Jim Zwerg and a future congressman by the name of John Lewis, his name you might have heard was there, John Siegenthaler, an aide to Attorney General Robert Kennedy, was knocked unconscious. But as we all know how the story went, the Freedom Riders prevailed. And to this day, we remember their heroic deed, and we are reminded of it. May the 20th, 1961, the Freedom Riders encountered the racists of Montgomery, Alabama, and the Freedom Riders won. We take the pause, we return. When we come back, we'll be checking in to talk about black farming with our first guest, Katrina Baxter. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back right after these words.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good afternoon. Watch for an overturned vehicle on 295 southbound side between 73 and 70 in Mount Laurel. An overturned vehicle has the left shoulder blocked, so it's off to the side of the road. Schuylkill eastbound jams up Blue Route to Belmont Avenue, also the Boulevard to the Vine Expressway. Westbound side backs up University Avenue all the way to Belmont. That's a big delay there. 95 southbound in Delco jams 420 to the Commodore Barry Bridge. We also have delays on 95 southbound Betsy Ross Bridge to Girard. Northbound 95 backs up Vine Expressway to Bridge Street. We have volume on the Vine eastbound the entire length and westbound 8th to the Schuylkill Expressway. Boulevard heavy northbound as we go between Wissahickon Avenue and Broad Street. Report brought to you by Mattress Firm. It's Mattress Firm's best Memorial Day sale ever. For a limited time, save up to $500 on top-rated mattress brands like Sealy and Sleepy's. Plus, get a free adjustable base with your $6.99 mattress purchase. And for more traffic information, log on to SigAlert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Does your pre-K to 12 student need reliable internet for digital learning? The city's PHL Connected program can help by offering free internet to eligible families. To find out if you qualify, dial 211. For language services, press 8. Learn more at phila.gov/PHL Connected.
The Philadelphia Salvation Army Croc Center, located at 4200 Wissahickon Avenue, 19129, is hosting a community job fair on Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Croc Center is partnering with area employers to showcase the variety of employment opportunities available as we return to normal. You belong here, doing the most good. Business casual. Bring your resume.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for June is Taught by Women, Poems as Resistance Language by Hakeem Adabuti. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, June 8th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, when one turns a few calendar pages, one must recollect that it is necessary for one to look at his cheat sheet. My guest is coming on at 5:30. I don't even know why I said 4:30, and that's why I was giving out the phone number. I should have trusted my first mind, but I lost it. In short, I lost my mind. So the phone lines are open at 215-634-8065. That's 215-634-8065. I reached out to Angelique, and just like that, her last name slipped me. She is known as the attorney who deals with all of the issues when it comes to LGBTQIA plus. That's a whole lot of letters, folks. I mean, we're getting to a point where we're going to have to start just naming the letters that are left over. There's a whole lot of letters there. And I was going to ask her earlier on. We didn't get a chance to talk about it a whole lot. I was going to ask her about the transgender athletic issue, I am still really kind of confused on this one. For those of you who recall, a couple of days ago, we were speaking about the fact that there's several Republican House members, state House members, who are supporting a bill sponsored by Representative Barbara Gleam of Cumberland, Pennsylvania, Cumberland County. That's out there in the sticks there. I mean, no insult by that. But she's sponsoring this bill that basically seeks to prevent transgendered women from competing on the same stage with women or females who were born organically female, who would be considered cisgendered women, I would imagine is one way of saying it. And I looked at the bill and I thought to myself, okay, the idea of the bill is that transgendered women, individuals who may have been born with male construct and male DNA and male physiology, that they might be bigger, they might be stronger because the makeup of a man makes him larger. This isn't sexist, it's just a matter of choice. I mean, it's just the way it is. And they're saying we want to make sure that it is fair for women by not having individuals who, for example, Bruce Jenner, who is now, what's Bruce Jenner's new name? Jessica? What's his new name? Caitlin. Yeah, I knew it was one of those soap opera names. Whatever happened to Jessica? And where is Caitlin? Well, Bruce Jenner, who is now Caitlin, won the decathlon in the Olympics. You have to think that he is a superior athlete by just birth. Would it be fair for him, if he had gotten his gender reassignment surgery in his 20s, would it have been fair for him to compete against women, even though he was legally a woman by getting gender reassignment surgery? Would it be fair for him to compete with women? Would you think it was fair? If he got a scholarship and your daughter didn't get one, would you say he took my daughter's scholarship if she were next in line? So these Republican State House members are saying we want to craft this bill in the spirit of Title IX, and Title IX was created to stop discrimination and create an equal playing field for women when it came to athletics. We want to protect women by making a law that says if you are transgendered, you cannot compete against women. Now, I thought to myself, now I must admit, it's like being endorsed by the FOP. When the Pennsylvania state Republicans come up with something, I immediately think, what you talking about, Willis? Because you just can't trust them. You know, they have viewpoints at times that you wonder what planet they got off when they came up with it. But I looked at that and I said, well, you know, that might be fair. That might be a fair way of protecting a playing field from unfair advantages. It might be. Wasn't sure. Up rose members of the Philadelphia City Council under the leadership of City Council member at large Catherine Gilmore Richardson, who came up with a resolution that fights against that Republican State House bill, saying that transgendered women should be allowed to participate in sports with other women, that they are legally women and as such, they should be allowed to participate with other women. Now, now, first of all, when I looked at the list of council people supporting the bill, Council Member Kendra Brooks, Council Member Helen Gim, Council Member Alan Dome, Council Member Derek Green, Council Member Isaiah Thomas, as well as Council Member Mark Squilla and Sherelle Parker. They all co-sponsored the resolution. I'm not sure how many others added on to it, but I mean, this is a stellar list of people that I've come to regard as being thinking council members. They all supported it. And I said, now, wait a minute, can I go against these council members supporting a conservative Republican state representative? But I have to admit to you, I think that the possibility exists that there could be some unfairness. I mean, if LeBron James gets a transgender surgery and becomes a woman, having him to play in the WNBA could be patently unfair. And I haven't exhausted, I mean, and the person I'm thinking of is Angela Giampolo, who is the attorney that helps me with all of these issues, but she's traveling today and couldn't join us. We'll bring it back maybe at a later time, and we'll get her to opine on it. But I'm wondering what you might think about this one. And then there's another thing that came up recently, and I know it's a hot button, but folks, I mean, why come on the show if you're not willing to pick up a hot button every once in a while? 215-634-8065 is the number. 215-634-8065. We go now to Prince in Schuylkill County. Prince, thank you for calling. Welcome to the show.
Oh, my God, Nick, you're touching a nerve. Nick, oh, man, as much as I like listening to you, oh, my God. It is ridiculous I mean, if you ever grew up playing sports, it is ultimately ridiculous to have a man playing in a female sport. And because what happens is that you might as well get rid of Title IX. Title IX was specifically taxpayer dollars funding female sports. It's no longer female sports if you have a man engaged in that sport. And men aren't females. So
well, but you got one problem, Prince.
What?
These individuals are women.
No, they are not women.
They are women.
No, they are not. They are.
Yeah, they am.
They are. So you're dealing with an identity situation here. So what does it take to be a woman?
I would say rouge and heels, but I know that would be sexist. That's a good question. Why do we work on that? What does it take to be a woman?
So pause that, put a pin in that, and you'll come back to me with that. Maybe on.
No. I mean, really, what would you say? I mean, really, if you had to come up with a definition of what it takes.
That's your homework. That is your homework. What I'm saying is that what happens is that when we are building up the confidence in teenagers and in young adults, it is based on a competitiveness amongst the genders. And so when you take that out, when you have a young lady who is running maybe a 4.6 or a 5.4, and then she's running up against a male counterpart who's running a 4.2, and everybody knows that person is male, biologically male, it's an unfair position. And so somebody has to stand truth to power in this situation right here. So here's my question. Can that same male who identifies as a female, can he run against other males? And if he runs against other males, physically, he may look like a female, but biologically, we're going to kick his butt because he's another male running against men.
Well, I guess you'll always have people on the fringes in both genders who can, for example, there are men who have the flexibility and litheness of body where they can dance ballet almost like a woman could, and men who do figure skating with some of the same lightness of frame that a woman might have. And then you have some women who play basketball, and I mean, I remember, what was her name? What was the guy who played for Indiana? One of the best shooting guards, tall, slender.
Best shooting guards where?
One of the best shooting guards that ever played the game. Real slim guy, hazel eyes. Miller, Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller, right.
Reggie Miller's sister used to beat him regularly playing basketball.
Right.
So you always
became adult.
Yeah, right, and then exactly. I get that, but So I guess the point, look, I'm leaning in your direction. I'm thinking that it's not fair. But what do you say to these lawmakers here in the city of Philadelphia? Look at the stellar list of names here: Kendra Brooks, Catherine Gilmore Richardson, Helen Jim, Ellen Dome, Derek Green, Isaiah Thomas, Sherelle Parker. They all signed off on this bill saying, let transgendered women compete.
So let's go down the list. Let's go down the list. Kendra Brooks, first time city council person, right?
Yeah, but very smart.
Isaiah Thomas, first time city council person, right? Sherelle Parker.
Yeah, but very smart.
Sherelle, no, you can't. So you can't quantify being smart because you got elected in the city of Philadelphia. Especially when we pay union bosses. Especially when we pay union bosses with no college degree, $300,000. That's not the equivalent of us being smart. So
well played, sir. Well played.
Right. Alex Dodd.
But you got Helen Gim, you got Isaiah Thomas, you got Helen Gim, Derek Green, Mark Squilla, Sherelle Parker. These are all veterans.
I'm giving they not. See, Derek Green's not a veteran. He's an attorney. This is his first term in council. This is
not his first term.
His second. First was no. He hasn't been reelected.
I think he hasn't been reelected. Okay, all right. I yield.
All right.
I yield.
Isaiah Thomas, this is his first term. You talking about people? You talking about people that Derek Green, Isaiah Thomas, Kendra Brooks, Helen Young got the support, got money support. But you're talking about 3 out of the 6 people that you named may not even be in council next term. So yeah, they sticking their guns on whatever they can latch it on to. But, Nick, we only got 17.5% of the people voting. By next time, the next election, when they open up the city and people are galvanized and going against these folks for making stupid decisions like this, then they're not. I got one for you. The other day, you watched the news. You watched Bobby Heenan and you watched Isaiah Thomas jump in the water in order to announce that lifeguards, we're going to hire lifeguards, and they had to get the brick from the bottom of the pool, what lifeguards would do, and swim back the length of the pool. That was the only time we found out that Isaiah Thomas couldn't swim.
Well, look, Prince, you have given me
If he can't swim there, we know he's drowning in city council.
No, he is not. I've got to take the next call, man. But you've given me a great deal to think about. What a great way to begin this conversation, Prince. We still have to figure out how do you define gender? How do you define a man? How do you define a woman? And I stand corrected. It is Derek Green's first term. He's been there so long, though. My goodness, man. He's been there for a minute.
Isaiah's.
No, it's Isaiah's first term. So it is Derek Green's second term. Well, it doesn't really matter. The point's made. Thank you for that call, Prince. Willie May, I love the name. And welcome back to you again. Thank you for calling.
The people that come on the program, they do their research so good and they are so smart when they talk and think. It's sort of intimidating to me. That's why I don't call a whole lot, but it was inspiration to me to go to church and learn the books of the Bible when I was about 11 and a half years old. And I wanted to say them today to give encouragement.
We're not going to do the books of the Bible because that's not what. If I do that, I kind of have to allow others to do something similar. So Willie May, I can't do that. But is there something else you might wish to say?
You were speaking about is it like that you a womb for a woman?
Now, that's a good point. I mean, the fact a woman has to, so you're saying that woman has to have certain organs like a womb and ovaries, things like that?
Yes, to be a woman.
I think you're onto something there, Sister Willie May, and that is that in order to be considered a woman, now there are women who are born without a womb, and there are women, of course, who live without them because of hysterectomies, and so I guess we'd have to modify it some, that you're born with certain organs, but then again, every woman is not. I don't know any men who are born with them, though.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to call today.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Willie Mae. And like I said before, I appreciate you. And more than anything, what a wonderful name you have. It's the same name that my dear mother had. It's good to hear from you again.
All right. Thank you.
You take care, ma'am, and thank you. All right, we got to take a quick break. I'm a little bit beyond time there, but we want to continue our conversation with you right after this. When I come back, I'm going to ask another tough question. We got time to talk, and this one's really going to, here's another one. The Texas abortion law that came down the pike. Going to ask you what you think about it. Put on your thinking cap. Strap in. It gets a little bit bumpy going forward. Stay with us, folks. This is 900 AM, 96.1 FM, Evening Words with Nick on WURD Radio, and we'll return after these important words.
What's up, Philly? It's Solomon Jones. The world is inching back to normalcy, but our approach to educating our children may never be the same. Commonwealth Charter Academy, or CCA, has nearly 20 years of experience providing a flexible, stable online education in the comfort of your home. Enroll today at ccaeducate.me. Here are the benefits to your children and your family. 1. World-class education and accredited lesson plans streamed directly into your home at no cost to you. 2. Laptops, headphones, and high-speed internet access, all provided at no cost to you. 3. A learning environment completely free from classroom risks like bullying and other distractions. CCA has been in our community long before this health crisis and will continue to faithfully serve students and families well into the future. Join the more than 2,500 students from Philly who already attend CCA. Enroll now at ccaeducate.me.
COVID's put life on pause way too long. Vaccines prevent nearly 100% of hospitalizations and death from COVID-19. So far, over 100 million people have decided to press play by getting theirs. And now everyone 12 and older can get one. Keep listening for vaccine locations close to you or text your zip code to 438-829. Message and data rates apply. We can do this. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Solomon Jones. I'm the morning drive host of Wake Up with Word here at WURD Radio in Philadelphia. This time last year, we couldn't go to work, school, church, or even out to eat. We were all separated and trying to be safe at home. People we knew and loved were getting sick and dying from COVID-19. Well, now there's a vaccine. It's safe, it's available, and it's free. Get the vaccine. It's the right thing to do. Think about those who got sick or died. Think about what they would tell you to do. And then do what I did. Get your free COVID-19 vaccine at blackdoctorsconsortium.com.
Tune in Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. to hear Empire Capital and Consulting founder Mark Palmer's show titled Black Money, Black Power. This show centers around black money and how black power is derived from money. Tune in every Saturday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Black Money, Black Power, hosted by Mark Palmer.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with you, ladies and gentlemen, here at 10 minutes away from the hour of 5 o'clock. Coming along at 5:30, we'll shift our attention to talk about the plight of black farmers, but not only that, about how certain banks don't want to see black farmers prosper. We'll tell you more about it in just a few. We introduced the topic of women competing, transgender women competing in sports, and now I go to another topic, and this is the third rail of conversation, readily I admit it to you, and that is the issue of abortion. This is another one of those places where you find yourself at times conflicted. It's really funny. People speak of women's abortion as a matter of women's health, and abortion, you can't call it health. You can call it choice, because the women aren't sick. They're pregnant, and the baby may be healthy, and you don't make it healthier by aborting it. You might do some things to save a woman's mindset, and you may be, and there was an interesting perspective on abortion that came forward in a book that I'm reading right now, An Easy Peace, where it talked about the fact that in the 1960s and 70s, abortions rose, which meant that a lot of children weren't born who might not have been cared for, and because of the lack of care that they would have received, they may have gone on to criminality. And as such, those numbers never appeared because these children were never born. It is a provocative idea. There is the thought about abortion that deals with eugenics, where people speak of the fact that the woman who was the driving force behind Planned Parenthood had some eugenics thinking in mind. There's a whole lot around this. I mean, we try to make it very simple because that's what we do. Human beings, you know, we try to come up with a this or that, yes or no, up or down, black or white answer. But things are always more challenging than we wish for them to be. And the issue of abortion is a very challenging one. It is constitutional that a woman has the right to make a choice, but that choice is not absolute. For example, a woman cannot wait until the day of her birth and say, you know what, I think I want to have an abortion. She can't do that. It's really funny that a woman could decide to abort a fetus, and that is okay. But if someone shot and killed the woman and killed the fetus, he would be accused of double murder. These are the kind of things that you have to think about. But in Texas, a very conservative state that is as red as blood when it comes to its politics, Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill that basically is one of the toughest abortion laws in the nation, that bans the abortion of any child, any life, as soon as you are able to detect a heartbeat. As soon as you can detect a heartbeat, they ban the abortion of that child, which many people conclude to be about 6 weeks. Most women don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks. Shoot, most men don't even remember. Okay, I shouldn't go there. But right around 6 weeks, they say that, you know, once you can detect a heartbeat, too late. Well, shoot, folks, most women find out they're pregnant when they detect the heartbeat. So basically, it is a bill that disallows abortion in the great state of Texas. Now, this bill that prohibits abortions, for want of a better term, in Texas, is an ongoing attempt on the part of Republicans who do not believe in abortion unless, of course, it's their girlfriend and their daughter doesn't, and their wife doesn't know. They are doing their level best to overturn the Supreme Court's decision in 1973 of Roe v. Wade, where abortion became a guaranteed protected right in the laws of the land. Mississippi passed a law that banned abortion after 15 weeks, known as the Fetal Viability Clause. The court had said previously that you cannot impose an undue burden on a woman's right to an abortion before viability. So they say when the child is viable. Now, I don't know exactly when that is, but what we do know is that the court has shifted strongly because we decided to not go out and vote as we should have several years ago, and a certain person became president whose name shall not be mentioned. And in becoming president, he had the opportunity to appoint 3 individuals to the Supreme Court, the last one being rammed through the court so fast that my head is still spinning. And now conservatives on the court, many of them who are strongly aligned with the Catholic Church, and we know their position here, many of them are saying and feeling that, hey, look, we've got to reverse this abortion ruling. There are others who are not Republican and who are not, well, put it like this, they're not necessarily conservative, but because of their religious convictions, they believe that abortion should not be allowed. I am of the opinion that a woman may have the right to an abortion, but I'm not sure if it's always the right thing to do. Using abortion as de facto, after the fact birth control does not encourage the proper stewardship of life, I don't believe. However, I am clear on what the law has to say. I'm wondering how some of you folks feel about it. Now, abortion it's big. In 2019, there were 56,000 abortions performed on Texas residents. 56,000. Those are the ones that you know about. Do you think that this rule is draconian? Do you think that this rule is punitive? Do you think abortion is going to last? Is it going to hold up in a Supreme Court? And they're just chomping at the bit to get a case to reverse Roe v. Wade from 1973. What do you think is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, when I come back? We'll get back to your phone calls on this matter. Only got a half hour to talk about it, so line them up. 215-634-8065 is the number. 215-634-8065 is the number. Both topics are still fair game. We'll take this quick pause and come back on the other side of 5. Our conversations with you continue right here on Evening Words with Nick on WURD Radio. Stay with us.
From safe to seamless, convenient to contactless, and local to express, SEPTA is the Philly way to go. Plan your trip at iseptaphilly.com.
In Philadelphia, everyone is reading this year's free library One Book, One Philadelphia featured selection, The Tradition. Jericho Brown's 2020 Pulitzer Prize-winning poetry collection weaves national history with the deeply personal. Youth companion selections include The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo and Hey Black Child by Useni Eugene Perkins and Brian Collier. One Book, One Philadelphia features 8 weeks of programming through June 9th. Visit freelibrary.org/onebook for the full calendar of online events.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WordRadio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WordRadio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
It is 5 double donuts in the city of Philadelphia. That's 5 o'clock here in America's favorite city. And the time is now, the temperature is now 82 degrees, beautiful, sunny degrees outside. And this time, a temperature check is sponsored by SEPTA. From safe to seamless and from convenient to contactless and local to express, SEPTA is the Philly way to go. Plan your trip at iseptaphilly.com. Put your mind at ease and just sit down and relax and let SEPTA take you all across the Delaware Valley. All right, folks, we're going to get back to the phone lines. Both topics are up for grabs. Coming along at 5:30, we check in with our first guest to talk about the plight of black farming and also the benefit of black farming as well. Let's go first to Dee in West Philly. Dee, thank you for calling, and we welcome you to the program.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dee. How you feel?
I'm feeling some kind of way about this conversation tonight. So, don't laugh at me, Nick.
I'm not. I'm laughing with you.
So the first thing that I don't agree with is with the transgender. I believe that everyone has a right to identify however they feel, but I do not feel that it is appropriate for them to be able to have an unfair advantage. And that would be an unfair advantage. But at the same time, it's a slippery slope because at the same time, we do have females who have the opportunity to play in male sports. So I have a daughter who wants to play football. She's allowed to join the football team. So,
that's true. That's true. But remember, the word that you used, Dee, is advantage. There is no advantage to a woman coming to play football.
I mean, I don't know.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I don't know. It's a slippery. I think that if they have the right, to make the decision to want to identify as a female if they choose to. However, oftentimes they may not or should not always have all of the same opportunities.
Okay.
Just as if, like, for instance, they don't need birth control, like birth control pills, IUDs, because they don't have them. They don't have a uterus. They don't have ovaries. They don't menstruate. So they don't need that. So therefore, they can't get afforded all of the things that women do because they don't have everything that a biological female does.
Okay.
So,
Look, I hear you. And like I said, I am really a bit flummoxed on how to come down on this one. So I got that one. Did you have some thoughts about the other topic as well? It sounds like you had.
I do. I have an issue with individuals who are making decisions about abortion, who've never had an abortion or been in a situation where they have had to. I'm fully transparent. I have had to in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And if I hadn't, I don't know where my life may have been. I was young. I made a decision to have unprotected sex, and it happened more than once. But does that make me a bad person? No. Does that mean that I should not have the right? But I don't think a male who has never been in that predicament should have the right to make a decision. And most of the laws that were created by men who don't.
Well, Dee, I must admit, I agree that most of the laws were created by men. But when it comes to the creation of life, men have an equal role in creating life. They may not carry the child, and this is why we hold men accountable for children who are born. I mean, this is your child too, and so I think both parties have some say.
We do not hold males accountable because when a female is pregnant, it's often on the woman first. But at the other point of it, with all of the rhetoric around let's let that baby stay alive, let's have that baby. Where are all the programs to support that unwanted child? There are hardly any. So they want to have all of these laws and regulations about let's make it illegal. But as soon as that unwanted child is born, where is the help? to make sure that that child is going to be on the right path, that that child can be successful and have everything that they need. You fought so hard for them to come into the world. Where's the fight and all of the money and the support in order to keep that child on the right path?
Well said, D. Look, I mean, I know it's an open discussion, and this is one of those kind of things where I bring a very open mind to the table. I know I have my thoughts, but I am not completely convicted one way or the other. But you have helped me. You have helped me greatly.
Oh, why, thanks. Thank you, Nick.
It's always a privilege, D. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
You take care. We're going to go to Tyrone, but I want to share with you about an athlete. And this is one of those tickler subjects. I remember a few years back, there was a female athlete that was just tearing up Jack when it came to track and field. Her name was Caster Semenya of South Africa. She is I believe she might be the world record holder in the women's 800 meters. When you looked at her, your first thought was, wow, she has broad shoulders and real musculature there. But you see a lot of muscular women, but her frame almost appeared masculine. And they said, this woman can't be a woman. And they did all sort of testing, and they found out that she was organically a woman. However, she was impacted by a condition or is a part of a category known as differences of sex development, or DSD. These individuals are known now as intersexed, LGBTQI intersexed. That's who that would be. They make it even more difficult to say, now, wait a minute, how do you define who is or what is a woman? Women who are intersex can be born with internal testes that produce a higher level of testosterone. What do you do with that there? Here to give us wisdom on this subject and many others is Tyrone from North Philly. Tyrone, thank you for your call. Welcome to the show.
Well, Nick, I appreciate the opportunity to share.
No, you got to fix this, man. Your job is to fix it.
Yeah, well, simply because my first child had a child at a very, very young age. But hey, excuse me, before I get to that, can I glow with you on the Million Man March? That's a similar situation.
Take a minute, man. Take a minute.
Yeah, real quick. The last march, the March for Justice, Al Sharpton. You know what, Nick? I have never seen such beauty of young folks, man. I'm just telling you, I was truly, truly mesmerized by the young people who participated in the Al Sharpton March for Justice. And you know what really touched me about it, Nick? It was such a variety of them. And, man, you just seen the beauty. You seen their creativity. Man, you seen their gift. See, our young people are so gifted, and they refuse. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. Maybe they don't understand that when God gives them a gift, it is supposed to be used to lift up his kingdom. And I really, really believe the reason why we had such violence and stuff going on with our young folks, because the powers to be do not want our young folks to realize their gifts and creativity.
Well said, sir. Now let's drive you back to the topic at hand. I want to hear what wisdom you will bring to this.
Okay, well, Nick, this, and I don't know how I always had this, notion about abortion. I'm truly, truly one that believes, and this was even when before I became, walking in the light, I really felt that when God gave you the gift to have a child, that you should not, destroy it. That was my belief, right? And when my child had her child, and I'm, again, being transparent, she was 15. And
that's very young.
Everybody was saying, well, Tyrone, she needs to have an abortion, But thank God that the school board had that program for young mothers, that they can continue their education over at the 1700 block, North Florida. I'll never forget it. It was called Teens as Parents, which, again, allowed both of my daughters to continue their education, to graduate from high school and to move on to post-secondary. But what the folks were saying, that she needed to have an abortion, and I'm like, even though I am definitely against it, I will never, ever put myself above anyone who want to make a choice about what they're going to do with their body. So, that's me.
Tyrone,
I can't get in the way of that. I mean, I'm against it, but I would never, ever, go against someone who want to make the choice that they think whatever way they think, and I can't, get in the way of that.
I got you, sir.
Okay.
Well, first, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that gilded moment of what happened at the Second Million Man March. I'm telling you, there's something to be said about the beauty of brethren coming together, and I speak, of course, as black men on this one, but I've seen it happen with men of all different races and ethnicities. But thank you for sharing that. And I'm sharing something right now. I shared a picture with Eric, and Eric, you see that picture, don't you?
I do.
And you say, who are they? The one to the left is a woman. That's Castor Semenya, and that's her wife. Now, you would be hard-pressed to think that Castor is, because that looks like a man and his wife. Am I correct?
Correct, it does, yes.
Yeah, and that's because, she was born that way. She was born that way, and it just goes to show that life is not as simple as we want to make it seem. We go now let's go to Connie in Alney. Connie, thank you for your call, and welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Hello.
Hello, Connie.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I agree with the first caller, the female, about I'm pro-choice. And
Okay.
I disagree with you. I think it is a health issue because the morbidity rate of females giving birth in America is worse than some third world countries. We're more at risk giving birth than we are in some other countries that don't have the technology.
Well, okay, but when I say that abortion is not health care, I'm not saying that prenatal birth. I think a woman, of course, needs to be addressed medically in that state. But what I'm saying is that abortion does not. In many cases, it doesn't. Now, some cases it does, and I embrace those cases. Beg pardon?
I'm talking giving birth. There are so many errors made when women are giving birth. I was a product of that. I almost died in childbirth. And,
hey, look, I yield.
It is definitely a woman's choice. Your health is at risk when you're giving birth. And pregnancy is a big risk to women. And I think it definitely should be a woman's choice, and no one should be able to tell them whether they want to take that life-threatening risk or not.
Let me ask a question, Connie, and this is a I don't know the answer to it. I'm just asking. Let's say you and I are companions, and you get pregnant with my child. What percentage of choice should I have in whether or not you bear that child?
I think it would depend on your level of involvement. I think
well, it was obvious we were pretty involved at one point.
Well, no, people nowadays don't have to be involved to create a child.
Oh, you take all the fun out of life, Connie.
I between a husband and wife. I'm married. That would definitely have to be a choice as a spouse and a co-equal of 50-50. If I'm somebody that barely knows that person and I'm pregnant by them, it is solely that woman's choice, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I think it's the level of involvement of the person.
So let's say you barely know that person and you have the child. Should the person that you barely know be responsible for the child's upbringing as far as contributing resources and accountability?
See, I'm kind of a new age thinker in that I think sometimes women, we don't look far. I think we do things. I'm trying to be politically correct.
Don't start now, Connie.
Sometimes we bear more of the responsibility because we know what it entails, laying down with the man, and then he can walk away, and we're stuck with that child. And for some women, it's a blessing. They don't care. They roll with it and take care of the child and don't even look for that man. But there are some women who, the man has 6 kids, and you go and have a baby with him. You know you can't afford to take care of that child. But you knew this going in. I don't look at the man as completely being, I just don't see that as a 50-50 situation, because some women know that and still have unprotected sex with that man. And a lot of women might be mad at me for this, but I just don't agree. I'm like, you knew going into his situation. You should have thought more about it as a woman. You control your body. You can't be someone who says you're strong, I can do this and I can do that, and then want to be helpless when it comes to controlling what goes on in the body.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, your comments are being directed to Connie.
Don't roast me. I'm just saying. You have all the means. You have Plan B. There is no reason to keep having 10 abortions when there's Plan B.
I get you, Connie. Look, I stand educated in this one, and as a man, I think you're right. I think we have to take. If anybody gets a chance to chime in on this, it ought to be the women. And I thank you so much for challenging my thinking and for helping me to rethink some. Thanks so much.
Pro-choice, though. I'm pro-choice. But
I hear you.
It's a shame when third world countries who have less of what we have in terms of medical technology can deliver babies better than us.
I think my first thought goes to Cuba. They're beating us to death when it comes to natal health. Be careful out there, Connie, and thank you so much for the call.
Just a reminder, income doesn't matter. Serena Williams still almost died in childbirth. As rich as she was, because they didn't listen to her.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, your comments are directed to P.O. Box Connie. Thanks, Connie. I appreciate your call.
I'll pick up my grandbaby. Bye.
You got it, my dear. I appreciate that. All right, let's see. I think why don't we go? We'll go ahead and take Wick, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll introduce our guests. Wick in Center City. Wick, thank you for calling. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Nick, you get in some very controversial topics.
It's Eric's fault. Eric, he says, talk about this.
Nope.
Hey, Nick, sex and women and men and sexual choice and politics and religion is the third rail of life.
Whenever you get into areas where there's no clear, sharp, easily defined answer, and where what you believe is as important and persuasive as what you can prove, it becomes the third rail.
You're 100% correct. But that wasn't the reason I called you.
Okay, sir.
To have some, hopefully you will have some dialogue with your next guest pertaining to black farmers. The United States government has tons of money for agriculture and farm. It's called a farm bill. I have associates and business partners that have tapped into that source of money to purchase multi-million-dollar telecommunication companies. And And it's a hidden little piggy bank that most black folks don't know exists. And the few black folks that are black farmers, they're being squeezed the heck out of existence. And the reason is because the white folks, your senators, your congressmen that own tracts and tracts of farm land by putting 2 horses on it, raising some cattle on it, raising some goats on it, raising some sheep on it, have tapped into this wealth of money. That's why they own all these big ranches. So, you know, it's all about reading the fine print and knowing what to ask for. We don't ask for the stars and the moon. We ask for stuff that's just here on Earth. They ask for the stars and the moon, and they get it.
Well, I mean, but back to that, and I've only got a couple of minutes, but tell me more about this large pot of money that's available and why you're saying black people don't take advantage of it, besides the fact that we fail to ask.
It's not that they don't take advantage of it and they fail to ask. They just don't know how to navigate through the process.
I see. And that's a matter of awareness and association.
There you go. My dear friend went around the world buying up telecommunications companies. You know how he got started? He borrowed money from the Farm Bill Fund. And right now, he's not in business currently, but right now his business was worth $5 billion.
Does your friend recognize that I would deeply appreciate him breaking off just a little bit of
Well, guess what, Nick? He can't break you off because he's already broken me off a little piece.
Okay, well,
okay.
I mean, I hear about people like that, and I realize that they could make all my problems go away with the stroke of the pen. You know, it's just amazing that some people find access to these things, and I've got to talk to you more about this. I mean, for example, there's a piece of property right now that houses a graveyard for former slaves and for some black Civil War veterans that is on the market, and it's not kept in the best condition, but it's a valuable piece of property. Trying to find somebody who can help fund that. I mean, Nick, and it's not that expensive, you know?
Nick, I can share with you how you unlock those sources. Nick, let me ask you, all these churches are being sold. Who is the beneficiary of the transaction?
Well, the congregations stand to gain, for the most part, unless they're a hierarchical church where there's a conference that decides to sell and will accrue the results of the sale. But then the real estate developers who turn these churches into condos or use the land to create townhouses, they become the benefactors.
Well, Nick, let's be real about this. Most people don't know what a forward appraisal valuation is.
Well, I'm going to act like I do and wait until later on when you tell me what it is, because
you and I can have that conversation at a later time.
I tell you what, man, before this weekend's over, I'd like to talk with you more about this.
No problem at all. Troy has my number.
I got you. Wick, thank you so much for this, man, and I'm hoping that somehow or another we can see some things happen just from this conversation.
Be more than glad to help.
Thank you, Wick. Much appreciated, my friend.
Right on.
I remember years ago, Deborah Anderson, when she was on WHAT, had a program called What Is Your Need Day. And on What Is Your Need Day, people would call with a need that they had, say, you know, I'm looking for a bicycle built for two and I can't find one. Somebody else would call and say, hey, look, I've got a bicycle built for two. Now, you got to remember, this is before the days of Facebook and eBay and all of that. Talk radio used to be social media in those days. But this is a situation right there, that conversation with Wick, we might see something happen just from that. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about black farming, and we're going to talk about banks that are trying to benefit from the plight of black farmers, and we're going to talk about the glory of urban black farming with our next guest in just a moment. Stay with us 25 minutes after 5. This is WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, and we'll be back after these messages.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good afternoon. Watch for an accident on 95. Southbound side of Broad Street, we've got the left lane blocked with delays here going back to the Walt Whitman Bridge. More delays on 95 southbound, Ridley Park to the Commodore Barry Bridge and the Betsy Ross Bridge to Girard Avenue. 95 northbound backs up Island Avenue to Broad Street and the Vine Expressway to Bridge Street. Schuylkill, jamming up eastbound Blue Ridge to Belmont Avenue, also the Boulevard to the Vine. Westbound backs up University Avenue all the way to Belmont. Vine Expressway heavy eastbound the entire length. We got volume on the Boulevard northbound side between the Schuylkill and Broad Street. Report brought to you by Smart Mouth, the only 24-hour mouthwash with twice daily use. If you talk to someone and they jump back because of your breath, you need Smart Mouth, the 24-hour mouthwash. You want to turn heads, but not like that. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that can provide 24 hours fresh breath when used twice a day. Pick up a bottle of Smart Mouth today or visit smartmouth.com. And for more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Hey Philly, unless you're planning on enjoying summer vibes in the same sweatpants you wore for the past year, it's time to change things up. That's right, that Philly summer feeling is almost here. The city is ready, and so are all the shops, restaurants, and museums you've been missing. Get vaxxed, get dressed, and get back to all the things you love about Philadelphia. Go to ReadySetPhilly.com today to plan your triumphant return.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing sites at St. Raymond of Pinafore Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. The second testing location has been added at Richard Allen Preparatory Charter School. Testing is on Wednesdays and Fridays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
Tune in to Save Space with Sincerely Sarita, Mondays at 8 p.m. discussing financial literacy tips with certified financial advisor Joanna Jane. Brought to you by AARP Philadelphia, exclusively on WURD Radio and WURD TV.
For the past 10 years, Comcast has been helping students get ready. We've connected 5 million students from low-income families to low-cost, high-speed internet. We're working with both nonprofit partners and city leaders to create over 1,000 Wi-Fi connected lift zones in community centers nationwide. And now we're committing $1 billion to reach 50 million people with the connectivity, skills, training, and the resources they need to succeed in a digital world. Learn more at comcast.com/education.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
All right, good people, back with you in just a few moments. I'll be introducing you to Katrina Baxter. Katrina Baxter is an organizer for the Garden Justice Legal Initiative, a program that's a part of the Public Interest Law Center here in the city of Philadelphia, and also one of the organizers for Soil Generation, a diverse body of urban agriculture advocates and an environmental and food justice activist. She'll be talking to us about urban farming, but in particular about black farming. Now, many of you may not be aware of the fact, and I want to salute the president for this. President Joe Biden has been trying to turn things around in government as it concerns black farming. The USDA, the agency of government, the agricultural office, is responsible for taking care of and riding herd on all things agricultural and all things that deal with farming. And many people have called the USDA, the Agriculture Department, the last plantation in the United States because of the extraordinary unfairness that has been demonstrated to black farmers in that group. Well, President Biden, through his Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, has been trying to come up with plans that will provide opportunities and create greater equity for black farmers who have been economically disadvantaged. And they decided to deploy a $5 billion aid package and debt relief package to assist them. That's a good thing, don't you think? Well, a lot of other people don't think, because they are saying, white farmers were saying, well, that's racial discrimination. Now, this is after these white farmers have been benefited over the years with many things. They claim racial discrimination because the Agriculture Department is trying to create a level playing field and provide equity for black farmers. And then banks came along and said, we don't want you to help them, because if you do that, then we won't get back the repayment of monies and interest that we thought. Folks, there's so much going on when it comes to farming and black people, and I know so little about it. I'm an urban boy who grew up believing that the only thing you did with dirt was get it out of your clothing by putting it in the washing machine. And that's why I call on the experts. Joining us today is a woman who's dedicated to the premise and to the postulate that black people can, should, and do farm. She is the organizing team coordinator for Soil Generation, a community organizer for the Garden Justice Legal Initiative of the Public Interest Law Center. Please make welcome my very special guest, Katrina Baxter. Trina, it is so good. May I call you Trina, first of all, and it's such a privilege to have you with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Trina's fine.
You have been...
I'm formally with the Public Interest Law Center.
Formally, okay.
Yeah.
My research failed me that time. I thought I was creeping up on you there and getting some inside info. Well, we know that you are with Soil Generation, and Soil Generation is doing extraordinary work in the city, bringing farming into the urban area. Give us a brief description of what Soil Generation does.
Well, so, Soil Generation started off as a project of the Garden Justice Legal Initiative with the Public Interest Law Center. So we did have our roots there. And what we would try to do was bring together farmers across the country, across the city. Mostly what we did was we looked in folks who looked at, in our communities, right? So we're talking about black and brown farmers, folks who've been growing and gardening in the city for a long time. We say farmers, but a lot of folks in the city see themselves as gardeners, right? And growers, and have identified as that for a long time. So I don't want to take that away from them as well. So we categorize everyone now as growers, just to capture all the folks who are doing something in the soil, right? So so for us folks, we came together, and we sort of was, we came together first around the land bank initiative, because the land bank had, the law had passed. And so what we won in the land bank law as growers was we won the right to grow pretty much anywhere in the city. And that's pretty phenomenal for an urban space. The only places that we can't grow in the city are like really bad industrial areas that are like really bad green spaces. Or so now we came together, we coalesced around these laws to say, okay, what are the real needs that growers have across the city? And so we started coming together, and we continue to politicize ourselves and to understand to understand the system more. And what we understood more than anything was that access to land was one of our biggest hurdles and barriers to us really being able to self-determine our foodways, right? So people have been growing on food for a long time in the city, but the thing is, most of those folks don't own their gardens, right? So I'm sure most of us know that there's a garden somewhere around their block, or somebody down the street, an elder who has been taking care of some foodways for a long time in the city here, because people have been doing that for decades in Philadelphia. But most of those folks don't own that land. They just saw a piece of land. They saw that was usually the land was in disrepair in some way. Those communities came together. They put food, they put seed in the ground, and they made something come out of that. And so now families and families are benefiting from that in ways that we really need, more so now than ever, because of the COVID phenomena as well. We all understand that food is more important and access to be able to get food is more important than ever. But our biggest hurdle in this city is really around land. I think that's the biggest problem we have right now, Nick.
Just listening to you, Trina, you have introduced so many things that fire up questions in my mind. You're saying allowed to grow anywhere. I did not know that there were prohibitions as to where you could grow food. Absolutely, what is that based on?
Yeah, well, in certain cities, I guess, it's based on people not really paying attention. I think that it usually governments in municipalities that are urban weren't really thinking about agriculture, right? Although this area started off as this huge, a huge farm. Philadelphia was like one of this, it was like a big old farming community for a long time. But that wasn't recognized as urban centers began to build up. And so farming and growing wasn't something that was legislated, I think, for a long time. And so the permission to do is just, I guess, to put it on the record to say that, yes, this is something that can happen. You know what I'm saying? Not that there was something on there before that said that you couldn't, right?
Yeah. Well, now, I've been totally shocked at the level, the volume of growing of food in Philadelphia is demonstrating now. If you could characterize for us what level of yield we're talking about, how much actual growing of food is taking place in our urban gardens and our urban farms?
And that's a big question. So that's a huge question because so right now, Soul Generation is actually, we're in the process of, we're in a contract with the City of Philadelphia, the Parks and Recs, and also working with this interface design firm to create, to do the first ever urban ag plan for the City of Philadelphia, right?
Wow.
And so, yeah, so what that's going to be able to tell us is that's going to be able to tell us things like that. So we're collecting data, but we're also collecting information from folks around the city who have been growing and or just folks who eat food and who are interested in being able to make sure that the rest of us who like to grow food can continue to do that, right? So it's online right now. Right now it's a public, the second meeting is online and folks can participate on that and give us their feedback, because what we're going to do is we're going to compile all the feedback. We're going to put that together with a lot of studies. We're going to do a lot of, we're doing a lot of surveying and putting together this information. Then we will give some recommendations to the city to say that this is what, this is what growers across the city are saying that they need, right? And then also creating what are the pathways that we can create to make sure that folks are able to get those resources as well. So that's part of the plan that we're doing. So we don't have any definitive numbers around that yet, right? But those are the things that we're looking at.
We're aiming at it.
Yeah.
We're talking with Katrina Baxter, and Katrina Baxter is with Soil Generation. We're talking about people of color and growing things and farmland in the city. When people think of gardening and farming or any kind of urban growing, they think of, at the end of the season, I'm going to have 5 really pretty tomatoes to show you. And everybody's going to say, isn't that so cute? But my understanding is that farmland, agriculture in the city is producing enough food to actually feed people, not just cute little hobbies now. But we're talking about foodstuffs to feed people. Am I reading that right?
Absolutely, and it has been for a long time. So I think that if you see a small garden around, for every little small garden you see, there's actually really large community gardens. And I know there was a study done around 2016, and they had realized that the amount of food that, because of that study, they were able to study at that time how many farms were growing food, how many community gardens were growing food, and to estimate around, how many tons were being grown. And then they put a dollar amount to that, and it was millions of dollars worth of food, and that was 2016, right?
Wow.
So we know that now, what folks are doing with urban growing has exponentially gotten larger. We have way more Black farmers in the city, way more farmers, period, in the city, and so I can imagine there's millions of dollars worth of food being grown in the city right now, and so that's what I do know. That's what I see, just on the regular, in the few farms that I know across the city. But I do know a lot of farms across the city. And there's a lot of food being grown, but a lot more could be grown if we had access to more land.
The thing that I appreciate about Soil Generation and the work that you're doing is that it is reacquainting Black people and people of color in general to the idea of being close to the soil and growing your own food. It used to be that people said, well, that's what you did when you couldn't go to school. You are a master's level educated woman, yet you remain close to the soil. What led to your being connected and having this affection for growing things?
Yeah, Nick, actually, this is my spiritual journey. So I am very much an earth-based spirituality practice as a practice, and so the work that I do it reflects the lifestyle and my understanding and respect for the earth, right, and nature as we know it. And so understanding that there's so many things that are happening to extract that are extractive to our soil, to our earth right now. I couldn't, everything that I do sort of has to be involved with how I can change that, right, and how we can help that. but then also the ability to grow food and self-determine for black people in our communities is hugely important. So like, I can't talk about liberation, we can't talk about getting free if we don't have access to land, if we don't know how to self-determine our foodways, then how are we gonna really be free together? And then also another piece of that is relationships. So for me, we in Soil Generation, we are very much a relationship-based organizing team. And so when we come together first as friends, right? And then we figure out, and so we understand that our relationship to the land is in the same way, right? So it's really about learning to love, learning to heal through the land, and knowing that we as Black folks right now are in this place where we really need to heal more as a community, as well as we're trying to heal. Sorry, you know, it's all kinds
That's quite, hey, look, no, that's what life sounds like.
This is what I'm saying. It's North Philly at 5:30. I was like, they might hear all kinds of things outside my door right now. But the reality is that, you know, I'm a freedom fighter, right? And so that coupled with the fact that, you know, I'm an earth-based individual, means that the work that I do is intentional very much about, you know, those of us who are really dedicated to soil and understanding what it means to us, and also what our healing is in the soil. Like, that's the biggest piece of it for me. And I think that our ancestors knew that in the South. You know, we have a complicated relationship with the land here, right? Because of the way we were brought here. But because our healing and our harm was from the same thing, you know? So it's interesting that the soil is going to be where we get our healing, and it was also a place where we experienced a lot of harm. So I think that I'm a part of, you know, this movement of folks who are really invested in experimenting and understanding what that means for us, right, and how we can grow and heal through the soil and with each other through our practices, which are very cooperative, right? Which are thinking about how we work together as people. We talk about cooperative economics and how we support each other, you know, locally and local businesses and local farm and food businesses, so that everyone is able to eat and everyone's able to self-determine in a certain way.
We're speaking with Katrina Baxter. She leads the organizing efforts of Soil Generation. They're a collective of Black growers in the city of Philadelphia, fostering the notion that getting back to the soil, as our guest just said, is very healing. We'll continue our conversation with her right after this break. Stay with us, folks. This is WURD, 900 AM, 96.1 FM, and we're putting our fingers right back in the place that gave birth to us, the earth. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good afternoon. Watch for an accident on 95 in South Philly. 95 southbound on Broad Street. A crash with 2 lanes blocked and delays going all the way back to Columbus Boulevard. More delays on 95 southbound Betsy Ross Bridge to Girard. Northbound we back up between Island Avenue and Broad Street. That's a gaper delay from the southbound crash. We also back up northbound Vine Expressway to Bridge Street. Jersey Turnpike has an accident northbound between 322 and 168. That's blocking the right lane. Back over on the PA side, Schuylkill Expressway jams Blue Route to Belmont. That's eastbound. Also Boulevard to the Vine Expressway. Westbound backs up University Avenue to Belmont Avenue. And the Vine backs up westbound Parkway to the Schuylkill Expressway. Report brought to you by Indeed.com. Whether you hire one person or hire up a storm, you can count on Indeed. Indeed has 135 skills tests to help you find the right candidates faster. Indeed skills tests reduce hiring time by 27% on average. Find out more at Indeed.com/credit. And find out more traffic information at SigAlert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Between family dinners, bedtime stories, and study sessions, Pico knows that life never stops moving. So if you need help paying your energy bills, there are financial programs available, like the Customer Assistance Program, or CAP, that offers a monthly credit that can lower your gas and electricity payments. Learn how Pico can help keep your life moving with CAP. See if you qualify at pico.com/CAP.
COVID's put the good times on pause way too long. It's time to press play, and COVID-19 vaccines are the way to do it. Now everyone 12 and older is eligible. Take your family and friends, because it's time to get back to the good times. Keep listening for vaccine locations near you, or text your zip code to 438-829. Message and data rates apply. We can do this. paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Solomon Jones. I'm the morning drive host of Wake Up with Word here at WURD Radio in Philadelphia. This time last year, we couldn't go to work, school, church, or even out to eat. We were all separated and trying to be safe at home. People we knew and loved were getting sick and dying from COVID-19. Well, now there's a vaccine. It's safe, it's available, and it's free. Get the vaccine. It's the right thing to do. Think about those who got sick or died. Think about what they would tell you to do. And then do what I did. Get your free COVID-19 vaccine at blackdoctorsconsortium.com.
Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School is an African-centered public freedom school now accepting student enrollment from kindergarten through 12th grade. Visit www.sfacs.us and click the Intent to Enroll button to complete the form for the 2021-22 school year. For more information, call 215-288-2001.
The Black Words Book Club. Word Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for June is Taught by Women, Poems as Resistance Language by Hakeem Adabuti. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, June 8th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. Word TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Fascinating conversation with our guest. She is a member of the Black Dirt Farm Collective and also leads the organizing effort of a group called Soil Generation here in the city of Philadelphia that fosters growing your own food, a collective of people of color who come together and in partnership make the soil their friend again. Please make welcome once again our guest, Katrina Baxter. Katrina, thank you for staying with us and welcome back to you.
Yeah, good to be here.
You are an Afroecologist, and I have never heard that term until I researched you to know who my guest was. What is an Afroecologist?
Okay, so agroecology, Afroecology is a term that we that my comrades and I in Black Dirt Farm Collective coined to define our experience here as Black farmers in America, to be in solidarity with the agroecology movement, which comes out of South America and from the peasants movement and from the peasants movement. So La Via Campesina and those folks there who have been having this and then this large worldwide movement of peasant farmers who have been fighting for the right for land, right? To say that those of us who are actually growing on the land need to be able to own the land, right? So, in solidarity with that, we said that we should name, that these practices we absolutely are in solidarity with, but also as Black folks here in America, we have a very specific experience, and we want to speak to that. We want to bring up and highlight the fact that we are not just farmers, but we're also creatives, right? So we're artists and we're educators and we're lovers of each other, right? We very much value the feminine and understand and represent that we represent that women are foremost important in building up our communities. We understand and we come from a recognized queer lens, which I think that folks are really understanding now, that there's so much more to life than just than just like this duality of reality, right? Of nature and reality. And so standing in that, but also revalorizing what it means to be a farmer, right? So like a lot of the folks in my group from Black Dirt, some are educators, some of them are PhDs, but then also we like this is what we're given. This work is so valuable, it's honorable. So like being a farmer is a place of honor. And I think that we just we all sort of believe that we got away from understanding that being able to feed ourselves, is directly related to the people who practice that thing. And everyone has to eat in order to live. so to bring back that value, I think, of the, and then also to recognize that we built up this, we as Africans who were brought to this country and through enslavement, created and built this country. And we also brought with us all the practices of how to build agriculture for the folks in this country. So agriculture is part of our blood, it's part of our birthright, and we reclaim that, right? We're saying we're revalorizing what it means to be able to self-determine, because that's a real strong thing to be able to do, right?
I'll tell you this, just listening to you, I mean, it's like an evangelist of agriculture that we're speaking with. We got a couple of comments. Michelle Strongfield says she's an individual grower looking to join a larger movement of Black people moving toward food sovereignty. How do we connect? She says she's attempted through the website but couldn't get a response. Can you give us information how people can get in touch with Soil Generation and the Black Dirt Farm Collective?
Yeah, so the Black Dirt Farm Collective, we don't have a website right now, but we are on Facebook and on Instagram. But also reach back out for Soil Generation. I'm surprised you didn't get a response, but we try to respond, to our website and our website inquiries. I think that this year has been really, really busy for
Give
us.
us that website again there are others who probably want to get in touch.
Yeah, it's www.soilgeneration.org.
Oh, that's pretty easy.
It's pretty easy. And we're also Soil Generation on Instagram and on Facebook, right? But yeah, and you can reach us through messages on both of those as well. So, but there's also, so for membership, there is the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, which I think we talked about, which I'm sure when Mama Savvy was on here, she talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a larger national movement that I think it's really important for Black folks who are growing in urban spaces to also see themselves as part of this larger food movement. And in order to do that, politicization and understanding the political terrain, like sort of the things that I'm talking about, or things that we want everyone to sort of understand, ideas and concepts. And so in order to do that, we participate in larger alliances. And one of them is the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. And one of them is also the Climate Justice Alliance. And they're both larger national organizations that folks can pay attention to and check out their websites to see what's going on. Now here in Philadelphia, absolutely get with us as Soil Generation. And this summer, we're doing less engagement because of COVID, person to person, but we are having like 2 or 3 on-farm engagements this year at One Art Community Center. So if you keep checking their website and keep checking our Instagram, the dates for those will come up, and so you can engage with us online and on at the farm sometime this summer.
This conversation is too good to just cut and cauterize right here. What I'm going to ask is, while everybody is listening, and Kateria McCabe said, urban growing is awesome news. More people than we know are food insecure. And listening to you, I'm realizing that we need to keep this conversation evergreen. I'm wondering if we can impose upon you and the folks at Soil Generation and Savi Horn and others to have a regular spot where we talk about growing things in the urban community. And I like the expression urban farmer is something I never thought would come together in my mind, but I like that expression. Would you be willing to come back and on a regular basis share some thoughts with us about this?
I would, and I'm gonna talk, I talked to my team about it, and I think that I will talk to them, and I'm sure that they'll be willing to talk, because we want as many people, as can be involved and want to know how to grow, to be able to have access to that information. So I think it sounds like a plan.
Before we go, Katrina, you use the term urban farm, and when the people think of a farm, they think of more than just a little patch of earth. And I had asked you off air, and I want to bring it to an on-air conversation, and that is, how many urban farms do we have, and what size are most of these farm plots that you're speaking of?
right? So we know that we have around 300 or so
300.
gardens
wow.
across the city, right? That's what we know of, and there's more. You know, we can't calculate all the things because sometimes there's little, behind the cut that folks don't know about. But out of that,
behind the cut gardens, I never heard that one.
Let me tell you, one time I was shown this amazing group of growers. There's this Asian group of Asian elders who are growing on the side of the railroad track over in North Philly. And so, like, there's places that people are growing across the city that you would just never know, and because they understand that if you have access to a little bit of earth, then you can grow something that can help feed you and your family, and that's what's really important. There's medicine all around us, right, Nick? Everywhere I look, there's medicine in the city, and so a huge part of what I hear a lot of people talking about also is like getting into herbal knowledge. There's a huge growing Black birthing movement here, and there's a lot of midwives who are getting back into like understanding reproductive care, and they are getting into herbology and herbs, and so there's a huge amount of herbs being grown across the city, and folks are really taking their healing seriously through the soil. So I think we should talk more about this, absolutely. And have some folks on, so there's other people that we want to get on here and talk about what they do, so folks can understand this movement that's happening out here with us Black folks.
I am just energized talking to you. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest for the last half hour has been Katrina Baxter. I was introduced to her by Savi Horn, who is a part of a similar group located a little bit further south than this, and she said, "You got to talk to Katrina Baxter." Now I understand why. We're going to be coming back, having this conversation again to talk about growing, particularly during this time of the year. But until then, Katrina, if you can give people, once again, the information that they might find useful in trying to reach out to you and Soil Generation to assist them in their growing needs.
Yeah, reach out, look at our website, which is soilgeneration.org, but then also our email. My email is just soilgen215. That's our email, our info email, at gmail.com. Soilgen215@gmail.com is our email. And check us out on Instagram at Soil Generation and Facebook as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest has been Katrina Baxter. Keep it growing, Katrina, and thank you so much for spending this time with us. I appreciate your energy and your insight and your wisdom and your commitment, and I'm looking forward to the next time that we have you on.
All right, Nick, I'll talk to you soon.
I look forward to talking to you again. Katrina Baxter there, ladies and gentlemen. She coordinates the outreach efforts for Soil Generation, a group of people of color in the city of Philadelphia reviving urban farming. It's real interesting stuff right there. I'm not a farmer. The only thing I grow is taller, and I haven't done that in 50 years. But right about now, I'm kind of interested in this thing. When we come back, we're going to turn our attention over to one of the oldest nations on the planet, and that is the nation of Ethiopia. Formerly known by many as Kush. You all have heard of the country, but you did not know that right now upwards of 3 million people are in jeopardy of life and limb because of a conflict that has broken out there in the northern region of Ethiopia. When we come back, we'll be introducing you to a guest who will train our eyes on that troubled section of the world. It's 2 minutes away from 6. We'll be back right after these words.
The Pennsylvania Horticultural Society supports WURD and presents the 2021 Philadelphia Flower Show, Habitat Nature's Masterpiece, June 5th to 13th. Now blooming outdoors for the first time ever at FDR Park in South Philadelphia. Safely enjoy 15 acres of blooming gardens and artful floral displays, shopping, entertainment, and new food and beverage options, including park picnics and beer gardens, taking place outdoors this summer. Tickets and details available at phsonline.org.
WURD family, West Philadelphia residents and business owners, listen up. Juneteenth is coming, and guess what? You have the opportunity to win cash dollars. It's the Juneteenth Freedom Day Float House Competition. Decorate your home, business, nonprofit, or entire block. Be a part of the largest Juneteenth celebration in the nation, right here in Philadelphia, by decorating your float house. Show your West Philadelphia pride. You could win $1,000 for the best decoration. One prize awarded in each category. Powered by Philadelphia Foundation. For all the details, log on to juneteenthphilly.org. Log on now. juneteenthphilly.org.
The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Everybody is aware, ladies and gentlemen, of the conflict in the Middle East. We are mindful of it, as we should be, but we do not know. We are not aware of the fact that even as we sit and speak, there are millions of people despairing of life and limb, and thousands of people have been chased to early graves by a conflict in one of the oldest nations on the face of the planet, the nation of Ethiopia. I confess that I did not know that right now in the northern region of Ethiopia, a conflict has been raging there since last November, and I thought it was time that I shared that with you. Joining us online today is a gentleman who is an expert in issues of Islam in Africa, contemporary Islamic reform, Ethiopia, and the geopolitics around the Horn of Africa. He currently serves as the chair of the Department of Religion at Florida State University, where he is an instructor in those areas that I shared with you, and is the author of several books and articles, including Women's Rights in Ethiopia, the Sharia Justice System, and the Intellectualist Movement in Ethiopia, the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Issue of Moderation. Please make welcome, and we're pleased to have joining us Dr. Terje Ostebo. Help me out with that. Let me make sure I'm saying it right. You said I said it right before, but I know I probably hacked it up that time.
Yeah, you should say Terry Ostebo. That's
Terry Ostebo. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Ostebo, it is a pleasure to have you from Florida State, and thank you for joining us to talk about this very important conflict. First of all, why is it that people don't know, and maybe we should start with this, what is the nature of the conflict that we're seeing in Ethiopia and individuals who are a part of the northern region known as Tigray?
Tigray, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so this goes back some time. The Tigrayan People's Liberation Front took power in Ethiopia in 1991 and ruled the country through a coalition of other parties until 2019, where that coalition was abolished, and the current Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, took power, who then also won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019. When he established this new party, the Prosperity Party, the TPLF, retreated to their own region, and a war started to escalate during 2019 and in 2020. And when the Abiy Ahmed, the prime minister, decided to postpone the elections that was slated for May 2020 because of COVID, the TPLF went ahead and held their own regional elections in September 2020, which the federal government declared to be unlawful. And then since September, things started to escalate. There were movements of troops towards the area. And then on November 4, what the TPLF claimed to be a preemptive attack, they raided one of the largest military bases in the region, the Federal Army's Northern Command, and took control over the military equipment in that base. And then responding to this, the Federal Army then launched its operations against the region with the help of Eritrean forces.
I mean, you just said a mouthful. I mean, that is, that is what you would call a serious condensed history. Most people, when they think of Ethiopia, they don't really give consideration to the fact that this is the second largest nation on the continent of Africa and a growing world power in that section of I guess we call it Middle Eastern Africa, the Horn of Africa. I know we don't pick sides here, but is there a general world opinion as to who is on the side of right and who is on the side of wrong here?
It's clear that the TPLF, when they ruled Ethiopia, could not be considered Boy Scouts in any meaning of the word. They've ruled the country with an iron fist. So there's no doubt that that regime has blood on its hands. I don't think that would ever justify the atrocities we see committed now upon civilians in the area. The problem with the conflict from its very beginning was that there was an information blackout, so it was very hard to really figure out what was going on the battlefronts. But gradually, information starts seeping out, and credible reports from Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, a number of other medias who have talked to eyewitnesses talk about several horrible massacres of civilians, the use of systematic rape as a weapon, and also it seems that they're using food as a weapon to weaken the Tigrayan forces. So in other words, the targeting of civilians, the lack of humanitarian aid brought into the civilians, blocked by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces, are something that is highly, highly controversial. And
we just lost you there. We lost you the last line there. We lost the feed froze for just a moment, but we got the gist of that. But the question that I want to follow up with is, I mean, when we look at the atrocities and just a few that you've spoken of, and the fact that people are using food as a weapon, we're talking about the kind of horrors that when they're visited on other countries, they become front page news. Is there a reason why the atrocities and the crisis in Ethiopia is basically barely a blip on the news radar?
It's again the capitalism of media, basically. Whatever sells newspaper, whatever sells spots of commercials is what matters. I mean, Ethiopia and the Tigrayan conflict is one of many going on across the world that does not get our attention. Just across the Red Sea, the conflict in Yemen is even 10 times worse than we talk about here. And even that conflict has barely gotten our attention. So it is about, media and how Western media outlets consider this to be of relevance and of interest. And unfortunately, they don't.
Wow. For those of you who are listening, we're speaking. Well, if you're listening, obviously, I don't have to say that, but I want you to meet my guest again. Terry Estebo is a professor at the University of Florida and an expert in the area of the world that we're speaking of today, Ethiopia. It appears to me that the United States kind of lost interest in Ethiopia after Haile Selassie, and that for the most part now they only have historical interest in it. Is this one of those kind of things where there is a lack of resource connection? For example, the United States may not do a lot of trading with Ethiopia, or they may not gain a lot of wealth from Ethiopia, so we just don't care about it. Does race have anything to do about it? Does religion have anything to do about it?
Well, you point to some very important questions. I mean, Ethiopia is, like you say, one of the oldest nations in the world, and one of the earliest Christian nations in the world. So the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is a large and vibrant church in Ethiopia. So obviously, in terms of religion, there should be a connection between America and that country. Ethiopia is a superpower on the Horn, as you alluded to, and in terms of the war on terror, Ethiopia has always been a very important partner for the U.S. Now, we have gone through 4 years of Trump administration, and Trump had no interest whatsoever, so to speak.
I'm shocked.
In Africa. So I think Biden and his team with Blinken is really trying to reassert itself in the area. But there's a lot of work to be done. By the way, Trump features his America First policy, which then put everything else on a back burner. And adding to that, we are also in a situation where China is a major power in Africa. And in contrast to Western nations, China does not have any conditionality behind its support and aid. They don't really care about human rights abuses or such things as the United States would do. So in that way, for many African leaders, it's easier to turn to China to get the support without being questioned on their violation of human rights.
Who are the Tigrayan people? I mean, we know that they're in the extreme north, closer to Eritrea. But most people do not even think of Ethiopia as having a diverse ethnic background. Everybody's just an Ethiopian. So who are the Tigrayans?
So the Tigrayans are they speak a Semitic language close to Amharic, which is the most dominant language in the area. And you could say that the Tigrayan region is in many ways the cradle of Ethiopia, where Aksum, the ancient civilization, goes back. And Aksum is still the city where the Orthodox Church claims that the Ark of the Covenant is that was brought from.
I was going to ask you about that, but please.
I personally think that's a myth, but it's a very important component in the Orthodox Church. So in other words, the Tigrayan people are very proud people. They are, the core northern people that have a long history in the political makeup of what was the Christian empire of Ethiopia. But after a while, the power shifted southward to the Amhara region around Addis Ababa. So from the 19th century, the Tigrayans became increasingly marginalized, and that was led to their war of liberation that started in the early 1970s.
Tell me a little bit more about President Ahmed Ali, who launched this attack in response to the Tigrayan forces taking over a couple of key installations there. Who is he, and why is his animus so intense when it comes to the region of Tigray?
It's a very tough question to answer, and in many ways, he's an enigma for many of us who try to understand that. He has an interesting background as having a Muslim father, a Christian Orthodox mother. Himself is a very active Pentecostal, and he's very outspoken about his own personal faith and has incorporated religious rhetoric in political language as never before in Ethiopia. Came to power through elections in April 2018, and immediately after promised sweeping democratic reforms, invited back former banned political movements, initiated and signed a peace agreement for Eritrea, and everybody was off their feet in enthusiasm for this new and young reformer. And that was what made him earn the Nobel Peace Prize, like I said, in 2019. However, though, gradually we saw that things were regressing. The promises that he was making about political reform didn't really play out. And it seems now that things are moving back to not normal, but to an Ethiopian normal of an authoritarian state, unfortunately.
We're speaking of thousands of people who have already died, and the word is that the crisis is building rather than going toward resolution. What are the immediate dangers to people? Starvation, we know, is one for some, but what are some of the, I mean, are we talking about open conflict? Are we talking about a real hot fighting war?
You know, developments in Ethiopia the last 5 to 6 years have taken us all by surprise on every juncture. So it's very hard to predict anything is open. The immediate issue is for the people to have access to food, to humanitarian aid. This period, leading up to the rainy season, which will start in a few weeks, is the warring season in Ethiopia, has been for centuries. So the two groups now, the regional Tigrayan army and the federal army, are now competing to gain as much ground as possible before the rainy season, because during that season it's very difficult to do much fighting. But again, like I said, there is not much information coming out from the battlegrounds, so it's very hard to say who is in charge or who is winning or who is losing. I would predict that this is going to continue for a long time.
But in making that prediction, it becomes difficult to swallow the fact that we're talking about the potential of millions of people perhaps being killed in a conflict that really doesn't have much of a name or an aim or purpose. I mean, and that calls to mind the United Nations. And what influence do the College of Nations have on this conflict, and are they exercising it in a way that is responsible and vigorous?
They are not, and that's the most disappointing thing with all this, with this conflict and with others. The African Union, the UN has been dragging their feet and being very hesitant to use words as ethnic cleansing and genocide, because that means they are obliged to intervene.
I see.
But you have to. You know, going back to the famine in 1984 and 85 that led to, you know, the Live Aid concerts, there were millions of people dying during those years. And that famine was more or less human-made through the fact that the Ethiopian government mostly spent all its money on arms and fighting. So it's not something new that will happen again. One would think that we would have matured, that we would have become more responsible, but I would not be surprised that the international community will let this escalate, that we actually could see similar situations.
How about the local constellation of governments there? We have Eritrea to the north, Somalia to the east, Kenya to the south and the west. I mean, there's always interplay when it comes to these kind of conflicts. Who's fueling the northern region, the Tigrayan forces? Somebody has to be giving them money to buy arms and supplying them with items.
Well, that's a good question again. Eritrea, with Isaias, the president, is certainly fueling the conflict, and many would say that he is really the card behind all this, where he wants to personally see the Tigrayans completely eradicated. So he is playing an active role here into that. Somalis are fragmented. They have no role to play. There's an ongoing border conflict between Ethiopia and Sudan that very few know about. And then you have the question of the big dam, which have upset both Sudan and Egypt. So it's very tense and certainly has the potential to escalate. But so far, the surrounding countries have remained rather passive in trying to intervene in the conflict.
You know, you make mention of Aksum a little bit ago, that ancient city where the Prophet Muhammad sought refuge, where the Ark of the Covenant is concerned. If I'm correct, Aksum is dead square in the middle of the Tigrayan territory?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't that put at risk certain historical artifacts that would bring out certain world authorities saying we've got to protect this?
Oh, no, that's so true. And there has been a number of reports talking about churches and monasteries and mosques that goes back in time that have been destroyed. There are reports of ancient manuscripts and artifacts being looted by Eritrean soldiers. Scholars have raised their voice in relation to these things. Again, there is so much we don't know of the scale of this, but it's certainly something to pay attention to. I would, however, say, well, a human life comes before artifacts and ancient buildings, no matter what. And I think that should be the greatest concern we should be looking at.
People listening, they're saying, Dr. Terry Estebo, you're from the Netherlands, and one would think that maybe you made a left turn in Italy and somehow another wandered down to the Horn of Africa. How does an academician from the Netherlands find himself having lived in Ethiopia and becoming an expert in matters of African Islamic affairs and contemporary Islamic reform?
Well, I'm actually from Norway. It's not Netherlands. And
I'm sorry. I meant to say Norway. My mistake there.
No, it was my wife that was really enthusiastic of going to Ethiopia. She's grown up there, and she was the one that forced me into that. So we moved to Ethiopia and worked there a number of years doing development work. And gradually I shifted over to academia, and so did she, by the way. So we both are working as scholars of Ethiopia in different areas.
The focus, and this is where if I have a hidden agenda, it is here. You are the chair of the Department of Religion, and you study religion, and there's a really diverse religious community. I'm a seminarian. When I'm not doing this, I'm pastoring a church here in the city of Philadelphia. We talked about the Ark of the Covenant, and it, of course, has garnered so much attention because of a certain movie that we will not discuss. But what is it that makes you think that it is more myth than reality, that it is not tucked away in some church in Aksum?
Well, the story that depicts the arrival of the Ark of the Covenant is called Kebra Negast, and it depicts the story of the Queen of Sheba that came to King Solomon, and they had some connections, which meant that they got a child together.
That was very gently put there, Doctor.
Yeah, I know. I'm on the radio here, so yeah. But that story was written probably in the 14th century. That's something we know. The 13th, 14th century. We're talking about thousands of years after this actually would have happened, and it was written with a particular political purpose of legitimizing a new dynasty within Ethiopia. So based on that, I'm hesitant to think that the Ark of the Covenant actually is there.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
There's also the rule is that there is only one priest that is allowed to go in there, and when he dies, another one is put in his place. So this kind of mystery around it. One would think that they wanted to really prove that they have it, but so far they have not.
Reminds me of my Mormon friends, where only one person could look in the hat and see the glowing writing that appeared there. You know, when we think of Ethiopia and we think of the rich and diverse history, people speak of the fact that there are many individuals who are Ethiopian or African in appearance, but whose lineage traces back to Israel, who are Jewish, some who even descend from priestly lines. Is that a large community of people in Ethiopia, and what influence do they wield?
They used to be pretty large. I would estimate around 100,000, but since the late 1980s, Israel have been having their operations where they brought many of them, or most of them, to Israel. There are, as far as I remember, like 2,000-3,000 left at the moment.
Wow.
It's a sad story in many ways because they, when they lived in Israel, in Ethiopia, they were subject to religious persecution, but as they arrived in Israel, they have been subject to pretty harsh racism from the Israeli population.
That's amazing because if I'm correct, about a year or two ago, Miss Israel was an Ethiopian transplant. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Yeah. People, you never know what they're going to do. Finally, sir, I mean, and we appreciate not only your time, but the work that you are doing. What can the common citizen do to try to make things different? You make mention of the fact that in Yemen we have atrocities occurring, and all around the world there are people dying that we don't know about because, as you said, the hegemony of the people who have the power in media. But is there anything that can be done from the regular, everyday person to bring some influence to bear upon this situation where millions of people could die if something isn't done soon?
Well, the most basic thing would obviously be to stay informed, to follow the news and make sure that you know what is going on, not only in Ethiopia, but in other places where people deserve attention. And then, of course, the regular thing would be to contact your local congressman or people in office, to write letters to make sure that they are aware and put pressure on them to pass resolutions and so on. And then to contact the media, write letters to your newspapers and call your radio station. But it's again, global politics, international politics is becoming so complex and so distant from our everyday world. And people in this country have, of course, a lot to struggle with in their own personal lives. So I recognize it's very hard for people to, wrap their head around something that is really far away. But again, I mean, that's the little we can do, I think, could be possible, and is use democratic channels and the media that we have to raise awareness of these things.
Our guest has been Dr. Terry Estebo, who holds a joint appointment with the Department of Religion and the Center for African Studies. He was the founding director of the Center for Global Islamic Studies, and he shared time with us based on his study and his experience about Ethiopia and the conflict that's broken out in the northern region of Tigray, where thousands have already been slain and where millions are at risk. Dr. Estebo, I thank you so much for your time today, and I hope that we can have you to rejoin us in the very near future.
My pleasure. Thank you
It's a
so
pleasure,
much for
sir.
having me.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break, and of course we can talk more about this if you would choose to. This situation, it really pulls a level of gravity in the heart and the mind when you think of the people whose lives are lost, innocent people. We'll take this break, then we'll come back and continue conversation with you right here on WURD 900 AM, 96.1 FM. I'm Nick, and I'll be back after this.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Does your pre-K to 12 student need reliable internet for digital learning? The city's PHL Connected program can help by offering free internet to eligible families. To find out if you qualify, dial 211. For language services, press 8. Learn more at phila.gov/PHL Connected.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
Taking your mom on a date. That's right, taking your mom on a date. Would you take your mom on a date during this pandemic time? Where would you take her? Well, here are some suggestions. Don't forget to wear your masks. Take her to the movies. Take her to buy some sexy sunglasses, to get a manicure and a pedicure. Take her to drive in the park and eat some ice cream. Take a little walk through the park, and maybe you'll talk and maybe you won't. What would you like your mom to do as you take her on a date? Well, You might have to say to her, let's have some fun, Mom. Take your mom out on a date, or maybe stay at home for your surprise date. And so I ask you again, where would you take your mom on a date?
Tune in this Saturday at 3 p.m. for the Friends of Farrakhan show, understanding the ultimate truth of the knowledge of self and the knowledge of God.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
It is 6:30 straight down in the city of Philadelphia. We're glad that you can join us here on your favorite conversation station. You go from the exhilarating to the debilitating, talking about the optimism that's bred by seeing people growing food in the heart of the hood, food right in the middle of the urban setting, farms in the city. I was talking with my previous guest who told me that there's a huge farm. The airport farm is probably the biggest one in the city. They've been growing food there for years, and we're talking about a couple of acres of farmland right down there. Then there's a farm called the Green Acres Farm. Green Acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. Land stretching out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan, just give me that countryside. Wait a minute. I could make a song out of that if I really worked hard. But there's several farms around the city. We're going to be bringing those folks back to talk more about it. And then to talk about a land that, it's really funny. Many of us speak glowingly and warmly about Ethiopia and know nothing about it. But it has a romantic place in our heart, the same way birth and biological parents would have to a child who is an orphan. It's like people say to themselves, I'm from Africa. Now, saying you're from Africa really doesn't say a lot, because you can consider that Africa is 3 to 4 times larger than the United States. And saying you're from Philly, a North Philadelphian views themselves very differently from the way a South Philadelphian would view themselves in many ways. But think about a landmass so large that you can stick the United States in it 3 or 4 times. And you're talking about so many different people. In Ethiopia, for example, you have the Oromo people who make up the majority of the folks in Ethiopia, the Amhara people, who make up about 25% of the population, and then the Tigrayans, who are the ones who are currently embroiled in this conflict with the central government of Ethiopia. And then it goes down. They're in just one country, you have so many different ethnicities. They're all African, they're all Ethiopian, but they view themselves in different ways. The ability or the willingness to try to figure out what separates me from you is one of the earliest evils that humanity has engaged. What makes you, you, and me? What makes me a part of us and you a part of them? What is it that allows me to draw a line that tells me that for my own security and safety, I need to keep you on the other side of that line? This is the problem that we faced as human beings. And it has been happening since the days of the Bible. There's a text in the Bible that many people misinterpret where it talks about that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. And many people think that that means that angels was coming down getting frisky with fine women. The truth of the matter is it's just talking about cultural differences. The sons of God, people who called upon the name of El Shaddai, the God who was the singular God of the people who became the sons of Abraham. And the daughters of men would be those who did not recognize God in that way at all. But there was clearly a line drawn that said, you are you and I am us, and never the twain shall meet. In the United States of America, the dividing line is most clearly drawn between people who identify as white and people who identify as black. It is not The first dividing line that was drawn, came about when people who were of European extraction came and faced a group of individuals who were indigenous, who themselves had drawn lines. The natives to this country, the indigenous population, did not come together and sing Kumbaya. If they did, they might have withstood the incursion of the Europeans. But you had Seminoles, and you had Lenapes, and you had Iroquois, and you had Sioux, and you had Apache, and you had Blackfoot, and you had Creek, and all of these different lines drawn because I am a part of us and you are a part of them. Why do we do that? Why do we feel the need to do that? And even upon realizing the insanity of it, why do we persist in doing it? Everybody right now listening to me, well, the vast majority of people right now listening to me would probably say, we need to come together. We love that kind of stuff. We like seeing those documentaries where at the end everybody holds hand and in the spirit of love begins to sing, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony, or we raise our hands and say, we shall overcome. We like to think about it as an intellectual concept, but when it comes down to doing the hard and heavy lifting of figuring out how to build bridges with people who are a part of them, which might put me and those who are a part of us at risk from them, we shy away. We redraw the line. We refortify the fence. We put up the guard and remind the others that they are them and we are us. How long will it be before we are willing to recognize the insanity of declaring difference at the expense of celebrating commonality? President Ronald Reagan said that maybe if there was an invasion from out of space, my words, not his, but that was the thought. If there was an invasion from outer space, maybe people on Earth would recognize that we have a whole lot more in common than people from somewhere else. But until then, let's keep drawing our lines. And you've heard the old joke, haven't you? The old joke of a man on a bridge standing there forlorn. Cops see him and realize that he's preparing to jump. They call to him, but he will not be consoled. He's had enough. He's through. He's going to jump off the bridge. They called for a minister to come and speak to him. And the minister calls out, says, my son, I know that it looks difficult for you, but things cannot be as bad as you believe. You must have faith. And the man says, what do you know about me, Father? What do you know about me, Pastor? My faith has not done a thing for me. You don't know me. You don't know me. You can't help me. And the preacher said to him, son, what is your faith? Tell me about it. And the man said, I'm Lutheran. And the pastor said, son, that's amazing. I'm Lutheran too. He says, are you Lutheran Missouri Synod or Lutheran of America? He said, Lutheran Missouri Synod. He said, so am I. Are you Lutheran Missouri Synod, a convention of 1798, or Lutheran Missouri Synod, convention of 1826? He said, 1798, of course. And the preacher said, so am I. He said, are you Lutheran Missouri Synod Convention 1798 of the Southern Convention, or are you of the Northern Convention? He says, I'm 1798 Missouri Synod of the Southern Convention. And the preacher said, so am I. So am I. He said, are you Lutheran Missouri Synod of the Convention of 1798 of the Southern Convention and also of the Smith persuasion, or are you of the Jones persuasion? He said, I'm Jones. The minister said, I'm Smith. Go ahead and jump, heretic. Long joke, long, sad joke to tell you that we'll just keep working until we find something about you that makes you different from me, so that I can figure out how I can hate you with my own self-approval. Olanian in Nicetown, welcome to the show. Thank you for your call.
I like that story. That is so good. It's too complicated for me to remember, but if you could write that down and have me tell people that story.
I'll try. I'll see if I can find it even better. It came back to mind. I don't even know if I told it absolutely correctly, but thank you for acknowledging that it's a persuasive story.
Anyway, a few years ago, and I thought I could find it today, but I can't. I looked in the dictionary, and for some strange reason, I don't know what it was, I wanted to know where did the word Ethiopia came from. And lo and behold, Ethiopia, according to this Webster dictionary, is not an Ethiopian name. It is something that means land of the
burnt faces.
Burnt sun. And
well,
I question whether people who live in the land would actually call their land the burnt sun land. Sounds like someone foreign made up that name. Now,
well, yeah.
Huh?
I said, yeah, it's almost certain. I mean, because, I mean, Ethiopia was not the name that was given to them. I mean, it was not the name that they chose for themselves. You had all sorts of Abyssinia, all sorts of names, but
it also means bottomless pit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the pit, lower, yeah. I mean, but
bottomless pit.
Yeah, I mean, but
European.
I mean, when you think about names, for example, we call this place America, which has nothing to do with where we are. We call the people who were found here first Indians, which has nothing, which is an absolute mistake,
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny how a name can stick, and it has nothing to do with who the people are, what the place is, and what the reality is that surrounds the context of the place. Amazing.
Now, Ethiopia, is it landlocked now? Now that Ethiopia has become...
yeah, it is. I mean, Ethiopia is completely landlocked. I remember, and we might go back to about the same time, remember when that famine broke out in Ethiopia in the 60s? And then Eritrea was formed. I mean, but Eritrea took that northern section of the shore of the Suez Canal away from Ethiopia, and now it is landlocked. And then you've got Djibouti that grabbed part of it.
Yeah, right on the tip of the Horn of Africa.
Right on, yeah. It's a fascinating. I look at it, man, and I look at Africa and at the great mixture of nations, the conglomeration of nations, and then in each nation, how many different people groups exist. And Africa is such a rich tapestry of humanity. I'm always surprised when I realize how little that I know about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like you can study a lifetime just starting on Ethiopia or Djibouti.
Yes.
Or Rwanda. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot that I do not know. But I like learning little things that I don't forget. And I just can't help.
Me neither.
But not liking calling the land of the burnt sun.
Well, I thought it was I thought Ethiopia was land of the burnt faces because their skin was darker.
Well, darker, that means that we're comparing ourselves to something else.
Well, I mean, actually, it would be compared to Egyptians and other Semites. Now, the thing is, now we're very sensitive to that. We're sensitive to coloration, but in those days, all color meant was, is that what you look like? It didn't mean a thing about your value. Nobody, I mean, all throughout in the Bible, there's several places where Ethiopians are prominently displayed. There was an Ethiopian or Cushite army that saved Jerusalem one time. Jeremiah, who was connected to Ethiopia, was saved by an Ethiopian courtesan who came and rescued him from the pit. I mean, there are Ethiopians all over the Bible. And so, and there's that famous text that says, can the leopard change his spots, or the Ethiopian his skin? Has nothing to do with value. It's just talking about an appearance.
Interesting.
Very much so, sir. Thank you for sharing it and bringing it to us.
Yeah, okay. See you next time.
Lion, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you listening and your talking. Eric, I am seeing the photographs you sent, and I am absolutely nonplussed. It is 17 minutes away from the hour of 7 o'clock. Still sunny out there. I love this time of year when I can get off the air and it's still daylight and it's still beautiful. I hope that you've had a beautiful day. We'll be coming back to continue our conversation with you here on Evening Words. This is Nick Taliaferro, and you're listening to 900 AM, 96.1 FM, and we'll be back after these messages.
Stage Door, focusing on arts and culture in and around Philadelphia. Hosted by Tiffany Bacon and co-moderated by Jeffrey Page of the Philadelphia Theater Company. Part of The Source, Fridays at noon, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. Sponsored by New Voices sponsor Comcast, NBC Universal, and Pico.
In Philadelphia, everyone is reading this year's free library One Book, One Philadelphia featured selection, The Tradition. Jericho Brown's 2020 Pulitzer Prize-winning poetry collection weaves national history with the deeply personal. Youth companion selections include The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo and Hey Black Child by Useni Eugene Perkins and Brian Collier. One Book, One Philadelphia features 8 weeks of programming through June 9th. Visit freelibrary.org/onebook for the full calendar of online events.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey everybody, it's 13 minutes away from the hour of 7 o'clock. Save Space comes along in just about another 13 and a half minutes. But I want to speak to those of you who are trying to launch a business. I want to tell you that your business is only going to be as good as the team that you build, and the team that you build is only going to be as good as the personnel that you can attract to yourself. Now, to find the people that you need, you got to look in places where people are inquisitive, talented, energetic, and informed, and you will not find a better crowd of those kind of people than the listeners of WURD. And if you're trying to hire diverse talent, WURD has got an opportunity just for you. If you're trying to build a business, we've launched a brand new job portal that will help you connect with diverse talent, not just the run-of-the-mill people who go fill out a newspaper form or just look at a one ads, but these are people who are inquisitive and who are energetic and who are talented. We can connect you to some really diverse talent in Philadelphia and beyond. If you'd like to have your jobs featured on our job portal, give us a call at 215-425-7875 or send us an email at sales@wordradio.com. That's sales@word with a U, radio.com. Check out our job portal today on our livelihood website that's located at wordworks.com. Once again, that's WURDworks.com. Click on the jobs button and you're going to open a door into a world where talented people brimming with energy and ready to go to work for you are just waiting to find out if there's a place for them to employ their skills and their talent and their energy on your workforce. Check us out at wordworks.com and build the kind of team that'll make your business a success. All right, good people. You know, there's something that I saved the best for last here. You know, I've got to tell you, I have always been heartbroken over the massacre, the race riot, the pogrom that took place way back in 1921. 100 years ago, we keep the sad vigil and we remember with pain the destruction of a thriving black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In 1921, white racists in Tulsa, Oklahoma, under the authority of the color of law, destroyed a community that has since come to be known as Black Wall Street. I remember the words of David Ben-Gurion when the Palestinians were forced off their land. He says that the old will die and the young will forget. And many people thought that way about Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. But the old did not die and the young did not forget. And the sharp memory of the oldest citizen from that disaster came to Washington, D.C. to tell her story. I want to play for you just a brief clip of a true American hero, Viola Fletcher, who was alive and who remembers the destruction that came to her community back in 1921. She came to the nation's capital just this past week to share her testimony as they went over the destruction of that Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And she's asking the nation to remember. Herewith, ladies and gentlemen, a few words from 107-year-old Viola Fletcher, remembering and asking us to do the same about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Eric, if you would.
My name is Viola Ford Fletcher of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm the sister of Hughes Van Ellis, who's also here today. I'm a survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 107th birthday. Today, I'm visiting Washington, D.C. for the first time in my life. I'm here seeking justice, and I'm asking my country to acknowledge what happened in Tulsa in 1921. On May 31st in 21, I went to bed in my family's home in Greenwood. Neighbors of Tulsa, the neighborhood I felt asleep in that night, was rich, not just in terms of wealth, but in culture, community, heritage, and my family had a beautiful home. We had great neighbors, and I had friends to play with. I felt safe. I had everything a child could need. I had a bright future ahead of me.
And now she switches to what she remembers.
I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the sad tale of remembrance and the trauma that is still lodged with a heart 107 years old. Viola Fletcher sharing her testimony at a conference or a hearing in Washington, D.C., where they need to have reparations concerning black people in Washington, black people who lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That story, even though it was 100 years ago, is as fresh as yesterday. The hatred that existed then, which is why I say to those white individuals who say, I don't want you to teach critical race theory. I don't want you to talk about how white people treated black people badly because it will make my little white children feel bad. Let them feel bad, because it is in feeling bad that we turn from the evil of our yesterday and embrace the challenge of trying to build a better tomorrow. Let them feel bad. Let's all feel bad until we create a world where we can all feel better. Thank you, Viola Fletcher, for living 107 years and with clarity of heart and mind, sharing your story in your nation's capital. I remember with you. I want to thank our guest who joined us today, Katrina Baxter, talking about urban farming and black farming in general. She'll be coming back to spend some time with us in the very near future to talk about growing things right here in the city. Dr. Terry Estebo of the University of Florida, where he holds a joint appointment with the Department of Religion and the Center for African Studies, talked to us about the horror of the atrocities taking place even now in Ethiopia. And I want to thank you folks for being a part of this dialogue from day to day, from week to week. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing your thoughts. And on behalf of all the great people here at WURD who make it possible for us to speak productively with you from day to day, including my producer of renown, Mr. Eric Nixon, my name is Nick Taliaferro, and I'm wishing you a great day today, a better one tomorrow, and I'll see you again on the radio. Stay tuned. Coming along and save space, sitting in for Sincerely Sarita is Sincerely Kayla J. You're going to hear some good music and some good talk. Stay with us, folks, right here on 900 AM and 96.1 FM. Take care.